EAGLES, Eagles.
There we are, Friday, baby. We made it. Welcome in, everybody. Tone and I match today. How about that? Sports Take, hanging out with you. Tone DeShields, Rob Ellis. What's up, Mr. Tone? How you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend. I can't complain. Great minds tend to think alike. So it's Friday, Freaky Friday. Let's have some fun today, you guys. I'm definitely looking forward to this weekend. You know how you the closer you get to the weekend, it seems like you're oh man, look at that. See, the closer you get to the weekend, the more people call you.
Shut your phone off, Barrett Brooks.
Exactly, right? So yeah, the closer you get to the weekend, it just seems like you're searching for that extra reserve, right? You know, you're trying to find your second win.
I got you, man. I got you. It's like you get there. You know, it was always that way. Like when you were a kid, you couldn't wait for the weekend to come. You'd be done school, whatever, and you could do your thing. And by the time Friday night rolled around, you were so exhausted, like you'd pass out and fall asleep, and you're like, man, I didn't have to get up early tomorrow. I could have stayed up late, blah, 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 blah. And then boom.
That's for real. I woke up this morning and I'm sitting on this, you're sitting on the edge of the bed like, it's Friday.
Trying to get your motivation.
It's Friday. Get your ass up. It's Friday. Let's do it. So we're here. Let's have some fun, you guys.
Here we are. Yeah. And what's up, everybody? What's up, Teresa? What's up? I am awake, flexing and stepping. James, William, Chuck, Mo, Bry Guy. What's up? Appreciate the kind words, Bry Guy. It was fun last night on WIP. What is up, Kevin? What is up, South Jersey? D. William. Sean, Father Sean checking in. I haven't heard from Father Sean in a minute. What's up, Father Sean? What's up, Kyle? What is up, Jason? I think I got everybody. William, what's going on? Hope everybody's doing well. Enjoy your Friday, folks. We got a great guests lined up for you today. So 12 o'clock, Derek Bodner from PHLY All City is going to be joining us. I don't think anybody covers the Sixers better than Derek and has great insight. So we'll talk to him about everything that went on last night and yesterday with the trade deadline, which we'll get to in a second ourselves. But he's going to join us at 12:30. Jim Salisbury, who covered the Phillies for the Philadelphia Inquirer and Comcast Sportsnet / NBC Sports Philadelphia for a very long time. We will get Jim's thoughts on what's happening with the Phils as they get closer to the season. We got tons of Eagles. We got tons of Super Bowl stuff for you. We're going to break this bad boy down, in depth like we do Eagles games. Plenty of awards handed out last night from the NFL and a lot of other stuff happening around the league. So, man, we do have a lot to do on this Friday. I want to start with this, Tone. So Britton Covey was on Chase Sr.'s podcast last night. Britton Covey, the Eagles punt returner, special teams guy. Chase Sr. Is an analyst for he's a host of the 49ers Report and Eagles Now. He's also an NFL NBA host. He's a Temple guy, Chase is, but he had Britton Covey on his podcast yesterday. I thought it was very interesting, Tone, what Britton Covey had to say. So I'll just kind of give you the gist of it. So Chase asked him what went wrong last year. Give me your assessment of what went wrong. And he said, quote, I definitely think we got emotionally tired trying to figure out what the problem was. There was some miscommunication from the coaches to the players. There was some pointing fingers from player to player, and there was letting outside voices impact our love for the game and the happiness that we had. That all combined to make us spiral. Okay, so all right, two things. And before we get into exactly what he said, my first thought has got to be, if I'm Jeffrey Lurie in the Eagles front office, like, Britton, my man, we love you. You had a great year last year for us. We'd like to have you back. But
don't screw it up.
You may not want to be the guy who's putting this kind of stuff out there publicly. Just saying. All right. Anyway, that's just an aside. But let's dig into some of that, Tone. And it goes along the lines of, I'm not breaking news here, but my stance the whole time has been this team was horrifically coached last year on every level, starting at the top, starting with the big man, Nick Sirianni, and filtering down to the two coordinators. And I'm going to get a little bit more into this with Lane Johnson and what he had to say to Dan Patrick. But let's just start with what Covey said, okay? So essentially, emotionally tired, trying to figure out what the problem was, miscommunication from the coaches to the players, finger pointing among the players, outside voices creeping in, etc.
I love the way you laid that out just now. All those things that you just listed, to me, sounds like a situation where the coach lost control of his locker room. And that's why, we spoke about this offline. That's why when I hear people say, nah, I don't think he lost a locker room. I don't think that. It's nah. This coach, this guy, made it to the playoffs 3 years in a row. He's shown an ability to lead this team, all that kind of stuff. And my thing is, we've seen smoke and mirrors before.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen people who portray themselves to be one thing, but come to find out they're a whole nother thing. My point is, Nick Sirianni lost that locker room last year. I don't know why some people are so, well, I do know why some people are afraid to say it, but that's all right. The fact of the matter is that team was not responding to the coaching. And I think we talked about this offline as well. After that Niners game, it kind of seemed like they had a hard time getting back on the rails.
That was a knockout punch.
That was a knockout punch, and the rest of the season was just the 10 count. 1, 2. We were dazed. We were trying to find our way. 3, 4, 5, and next thing you know, that Buccaneers game was the 10 count, and we were done.
Yep,
we were done. So, look, Brandon Covey isn't saying anything that I necessarily didn't already feel already. But again, you made a good point earlier. Brandon Covey probably shouldn't be the one to say this, but at the same time, it's the truth of the matter. This is the second time Brandon Covey's kind of been in the news this offseason. And, for a guy that's a punt returner who's very expendable, he's doing a lot of talking.
Yeah. If I'm his agent, I would just advise him from here on out. And it's not to say what he said wasn't the truth. It was. But I would just say to him, for career longevity,
and look, he's a good guy. I want to make that very clear. Yeah. He's a good guy. He's not a controversial guy.
He spoke the truth.
Yeah,
he wasn't lying.
But Rob, you know this better than me.
Yeah.
The truth doesn't get you but so far.
Doesn't always set you free.
The truth doesn't always set you. No, and actually, the truth can set you free. It can set you free into the unemployment line. So you're right. The truth can.
You're right. It can set you very free. You can have a lot of free time on your hands after speaking the truth or your truth. Yeah.
And the truth doesn't get you but so far in this industry. Sometimes you gotta go along, get along.
Trust me.
Out the wave.
Trust me when I tell you that. I agree.
Yes. Anyway. So again. Although what Brent Covey said is true, and I agree with him, he can't be the one to say that. As an aside, Nick Sirianni has a lot of work to do. And when you think about the moves the Eagles have made this offseason with the coaching changes and bringing in Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio, forcing Nick Sirianni to fire his guys, all that kind of stuff, it just speaks to how much faith or lack thereof they have in Nick Sirianni.
Correct.
But I'm really curious to hear you deep dive into this thing. I want to know truly, how are you unpacking this? Because again, it's not anything we didn't already know, but at the same time, when you hear it solidify from a guy that's in the building, I want to hear how you peel the layers back.
I'm going to work my way up. All right. So first of all, I'm going to put this on the front office and Nick Sirianni for thinking that these two guys were the proper hires as coordinators. They're not the chief culprits. Sirianni is. I'm going to get to him.
Right.
But first of all, the fact that you thought Sean Desai coming in from the outside when you had a candidate in-house like Denard Wilson, and again, I don't know 100% that it all would have worked out with Denard Wilson, but I know Desai wasn't the guy. And you also thought it was a good idea to have Matt Patricia here. The thing with when you made the move to Matt Patricia, which was sheer desperation, you did it with the idea that he was going to tweak. And it sounds to me like he wasn't tweaking, like he was making wholesale changes. And those guys were like, we're doing this week 14? And there's different calls and different alignments. It was sheer stupidity. You should have wrote it out with Desai. I think Desai was a mistake, but I think it would have been less damage with Desai.
Yeah, the courage of your convictions.
Right. So I'll start there. Then I'll go to the other side. Clearly, this thing was beyond predictable offensively. You couldn't handle a blitz. You didn't do anything and throw outside the hashes deep. You did so little with so much. You had Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown, and a really good offensive line and a 1,000-yard running back, and the offense looks stale? What the hell is that? So then let's go to the third and biggest culprit here, the head coach. The head coach was an offensive guy who was hired for his offensive prowess. He was brought here from the Colts because he was thought to be in the vein of Sean McVay and all these guys, okay? McDaniel, whatever. And he's a guy who can't step away and look at it and sit there and see what's going on in game with Brian Johnson and have conversations with him. We got to change this. Or he's so bad at planning this up that this thing looks predictable every single week. And that's just the offensive nitty gritty. Let's take it a step further back. You're the head coach, man. Britton Covey, who's a second-year punt returner, can see these things, can see what's going on, can see communication breakdowns between the coaches and the players, can see players pointing fingers, and you did nothing to stop it, or whatever you did to try to stop it was ineffective. So it's the ultimate indictment of Nick Sirianni, but there's a mess all over the place. I saw a team last year that absolutely quit. Like, to me, I've said this before, there's no disgrace in losing to the 49ers. There's no disgrace in going down to Dallas and losing after you beat Dallas here. Understandable. I hated the way they got killed in both games, but understandable.
It happens.
But when you started to really see it was the Seahawks game. You let a backup quarterback go 92 yards on you, and the defensive calls to have Bradbury singled up against Smith-Njigba, who was a really good rookie receiver. The fact that you had Bradbury, who we knew at that point couldn't cover anybody in single coverage, was terrible. The fact that Jalen and AJ decide they're going to ad lib because what we're getting called in is such garbage. We're going to ad lib here and take ourselves out of field goal range to try and tie it. That to me was the point of, oh my God. And then after that, it turned into Giants game that you escaped on Christmas that you probably had no business winning, but you won. And then we were kind of fooled a little bit. And then it was the Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon in the second half, putting on a masterclass of out coaching you when you had no answers at all. You lose that game when you still went into that game with a chance at the number 1 seed. Okay, even as bad as that was, then the next week you top it by losing to a Giants team that is hot garbage, that just absolutely sucked. And then you still have a break because you started off so well that you're in the playoffs, and you show up to that Tampa game, or don't show up, however you want to look at it. I don't think they even showed up. But you arrived at that game with a chance to at least stabilize and show that you have some heart, and you just laid down in that game. So to me, this obviously it's Howie, Jeffrey, you're not excluded here. This is on you too. But Nick Sirianni looks awful when it comes to this, and he's back. He's back. So it should scare you, man.
Rob, I love when you get like this. I absolutely love this version of you.
How many veins was I veining pretty badly in the neck and the forehead?
Typically, they say Fridays is when people start to mail it in. No, not us. Not us. This is why I love you, Ari. No, you laid it out completely perfectly. Like, it's a trickle down effect. And you look at Nick Sirianni and you say to yourself, how can this man still be in the building when you, a guy that's not even in the building, were able to ring off so many indictments? Everything that you indicated to me signified a lack of respect for the authority, meaning that the authority didn't demand the respect, or didn't command the respect, or didn't deserve the respect,
or couldn't figure out how to get,
or couldn't figure it out. Players are smart.
Yes,
players are smart. And look,
players sniff it out immediately, Tony.
Right,
immediately.
Look. At the end of the day, players have to produce, right? That's the fact of the matter. But I kind of look at football a little differently, right? I look at football as, okay, yes, the players go out there, they play, they have to execute. But at the same time, they're being told where to be and what to do. And 9 times out of 10, they're told where the ball is supposed to be and where, and all, especially on defense. Yeah. Everyone has markers. Everyone is supposed to be in specific places on the field, right? That's why guys run specific routes. That's why, there's alignments and all that kind. Guys are supposed to be in particular places, right? And clearly, when it came to whatever Nick Sirianni was trying to feed this team, it wasn't resonating. Nobody knew where they were supposed to be. No one was able to execute his game plan, his vision. Again, there's no shame in losing to the Niners. No shame in losing to the Cowboys. Was it upsetting? Did it hurt? Was it a gut punch? Absolutely. Was it a crude reminder that, hey, maybe we're further away than we think? Sure. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, good teams lose to good teams all the time. We saw the Detroit Lions got blown out by the Ravens. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And the Detroit Lions ended up in the NFC Championship. So what happens? Good teams lose to good teams all the time. No big deal. The Chiefs, I'm sorry, not the Chiefs. The The Niners got blown out by the Ravens.
That's right.
Niners are in the Super Bowl. Where are the Ravens? At home. So it happens. But like you said, when we saw that Seahawks game, when we saw that Cardinals game, those Giants games, we said to ourselves, oh no, this team is shot.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like they were shot by a ghost sniper from the stands. Like it was almost like they had no idea what would happen.
Yeah.
Like I said, they were in the 10 count for the rest of that season, and they were finally put out of their misery in that Buccaneers game. This is nothing that we didn't already know, but at the same time, it just reaffirms where we are with this team right now.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk later on in the show about what they can do to get this thing back on track, right? Because the reality is they have a 4-year window. They have about a 4-year window to get this thing right with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is that contract is starting this year. So in my humble opinion, I think every move they make needs to circle back to Jalen Hurts, because as much as we love the kid, we have no idea if he's going to be here beyond the contract. That's right. One thing we can't speak for that. One thing we do know is he's on contract. He's paid. He's locked in. Now you have to maximize this window. I'm not in the business of trying to wait 3 or 4 years for a guy to get right. I need guys that can help me win within this 4-year window. It's just that simple, Rob. And as of right now, I'm looking at Nick Sirianni, and I'm looking at this new dynamic with the coaching staff that's been built around him. I have a hard time seeing how this can be sustainable with him still being in the building. I don't know how impactful he can be or will be. This has an opportunity to either go really well or really, really, really bad.
Yeah, and fast, bad, fast potentially. But so let me give you Lane Johnson too. So you got a guy who, however you view Britton Covey, and I give the guy props. He's going to carve out a nice career for himself, whatever. But we know he's not as consequential in the big picture as some other guys are. Lane Johnson is, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Lane Johnson is. So Lane Johnson was on with Dan Patrick yesterday. He's at the Super Bowl doing the rounds, all that kind of, and he's doing a lot of great stuff for mental health, by the way. Incredible. Props to Lane. But he talked about specifically after the 49ers game, and he said his term, not mine, they dismantled us. Okay, the 49ers. And he said the rest of the way teams were on to us. Teams had a game plan for us. Now, he's probably talking about both sides of the ball, but I'm sure he's being more specific to his side of the ball, the offense.
Right.
So, and Nick Bosa said the same thing. He said we had the blueprint for Jalen in that offense. Nick Bosa said that too, for at the time, mind you. So what I'm saying is, when you get lit up like that, like they did against the Niners and the Cowboys the next week,
you got to go to the drawing board.
There's got to be like a come to Jesus moment where we say, you know what? Hey, this isn't working. It might have worked last year. It might have worked earlier in the year, whatever. It's not working now. We have to change things up. And I get a sense, and this is not us speculating this. This is coming from Lane Johnson, that they just kept, hey, we'll be fine, or we're too talented, or we have this, we have that, and everything's going to be good. And it didn't work the rest of the year.
They kept hammering a nail, Rob, that was already gone. The nail is in, it's gone.
They're turning a screw, it's stripped.
Right. And guess what? This is what signifies the limitations of Nick Sirianni as a head coach, especially on offense. Look, defense, I feel like defense was personnel was the real issue on that side. I will definitely say personnel on the defensive side. That was the main issue, right? I don't know if anybody could have saved that defense. But on the offensive side, when you have Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, that offensive line, DeAndre Swift, that running back, I'm not saying he's a top 5 running back, but you have arguably a top 12, top 15 running back in the NFL. You should be able to make some waves on offense. You should have no problem putting up 30 points a game. But on the back end of the season, 19 points here, 16 points here, 13 points there. It was a hot freaking mess. So again, that's a large indictment on Nick Sirianni. That is what separates the great head coaches from the worst ones. The ones that go through adversity when when their best trick gets figured out, and you know what they do? They come back with a different trick. They go back to the drawing board and they start reinventing and creating plays on the fly. In those in those meeting rooms. What was he doing this whole time?
That's what I can't figure out.
That's my multi-billion-dollar question. What was he doing for 7 weeks?
That's the
because they looked exactly. Rob, real quick.
Yeah,
we can make a real argument that throughout that 8-game stretch where they went 1-7,
Right.
each game started out in Groundhog Day watching those games throughout those weeks. What was Nick Sirianni and that coaching staff doing in terms, from a schematical standpoint? Because again, when they say figured out, they don't mean we figured out how to stop AJ Brown. You can't stop AJ Brown. They don't mean we figured out Devontae Smith. His business. They're not talking about that. They're talking about whatever these coaches have these players doing. We know where they're going to be, and we're going to beat them to their spot.
Right.
Simple as that. And
Yeah.
guess what? Again, Nick Sirianni, what were you doing for the past 8 weeks?
Yeah. I it's always a fun exercise to do this when it comes to like history, or we'd like to do it with sports naturally. But like, if I could do the truth serum thing and sit down, like I would sit Nick, Brian Johnson, Jalen, probably Lane, because I know I get a lot of truth out of Lane, and a couple other guys, and I would just sit down and I would drill down on them. All right, guys, talk to me about after the Niners game or Cowboys game. What happened? What were the adjustments that were made? The lack thereof. Why weren't things dramatically changed? Why were teams, easily able to figure you out? What the hell happened? And all we hear about, Tone, is coaches are there 24/7. They're up at 3:00 in the morning, and these guys live in the office and blah blah blah. And it's unhealthy because they're putting in so much work. Was there a lot of work being put in? And if there was, the old adage, right? Work smarter rather than work harder. Like, what happened? How does a team that went to a Super Bowl, was it within 3 points of a Super Bowl, started off 10-1, become the easiest team to game plan?
You want to know what happened, Rob? And, we say this all the time in different contexts. Nick Sirianni shot his load.
Yeah.
He shot his load. He maxed out. Because if they truly have faith, in my humble opinion, if they truly have faith in Nick Sirianni's football acumen and his football decision-making, they wouldn't have made the moves they made in the offseason, bringing in Kellen Moore, bringing in Vic Fangio, bringing in Doug Nussmeier, right? They wouldn't have made those moves if they had the utmost faith in Nick Sirianni to pull himself out of this hole. What they did instead was they told Nick, we don't trust you, so we're gonna hamstring you. We're going to make you fire the people that was in this building the year before, and they were only here for a year. Let's put it that way. Well, in their current roles for a year, we're going to make you fire them, and we're going to bring in the people because we don't trust you, to put the right people in position. That's essentially what. See, don't listen to what they say. Pay attention to what they do, and based off of all their actions, all their moves, it indicates a clear disconnect in terms of trust between Nick Sirianni, the players, and the front office. It's very clear. It's very obvious. They did not trust Nick Sirianni to pull himself out of this hole, which in turn tells me, or in turn, it makes me feel like, why keep him in the building in the first place? Your moves indicate a lack of trust in him. If you don't trust someone, why keep them around you?
And that begs the question, did he simply survive because you didn't want, I was thinking about this today. So since Andy Reid left in 2013, if you had moved, you have gone through Chip, Doug, and now Nick, right? Did this come down to they didn't want to be on their fourth coach?
Yes.
Since Andy Reid left?
Yes.
Right. And if that's why you're making that decision, it's the wrong reason to make that decision.
They care too much about how people view them.
The perception.
They care too much about the perception, in my humble opinion. This is when PR fails you. This is PR people making football decisions. This is people in suits making football decisions. Nick Sirianni does not deserve to be here. He maxed out. He had 8 weeks to come up with something a little different than what he was already doing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying completely turn the offense on its head, but okay, whatever people have caught on to, tweak it. People notice you're zigging. Okay, maybe it's time for you to zag. This is what I think about the Kansas City Chiefs all season, right? I mean, all season, how they had their own turbulence, right? I think about the Rams. They went through turbulence, right? They had injuries too, but bottom line is it was up and down for the Rams, up and down for the Chiefs, right? And obviously the Chiefs are much better than the Rams, but I want you guys to follow me here. I'm talking about offensive minds. There was a point in time when the Rams, we weren't sure if they were going to make the playoffs or not, but Sean McVay, although he was dealing with injuries, although his team wasn't as talented as the most, he continued to try to throw in wrinkles. He continued to try things to keep this offense either ahead of the curve engaged or did the best to maximize his personnel.
Yeah.
Did whatever he could, and they found their way into the playoffs. The Chiefs, they had their ups and downs. Guys wasn't catching the ball. Guys wasn't being where they were supposed to be. You name it. Their defense was their calling card. Patrick Mahomes, didn't have his best season.
Kelce wasn't himself early.
Kelce wasn't himself, but they still kept hammering it, and they still kept trying to, okay, what can we do? Okay, who are we?
Yeah.
What are our limitations? They started to learn themselves. I look at Nick Sirianni, and I say, and I look at him as a guy this season who did not look in the mirror not one time.
Yeah.
Did not bother to learn himself and say, okay, we've hit a wall here. Okay, it's time for me to break down another wall, right? It's time for me to get the sledgehammer and break down another wall and figure out something else that we can do to keep this thing going, because we're too talented for us to be this limited. And that's the biggest thing. They were too talented to be that limited on offense. Again, defense, we know what those issues were. Personnel, we get that. But on offense in particular, they were too talented to be that inept, to be that hamstrung on offense. You can't add it up. It doesn't make sense. How were the Rams more effective on offense and you're more talented than them on offense? How?
Coaching.
It doesn't add up to me. I saw teams that were worse, or let me not say worse. I saw teams that lacked the personnel the Eagles had, and they were more effective. I don't understand that. Devontae Smith doesn't strike me as a guy that that gets lazy in the season.
No.
AJ Brown doesn't strike me as a guy that's lazy.
I don't think
Hurts doesn't strike me as a guy that's lazy.
Yeah,
this offensive line all of a sudden didn't forget how to do their jobs.
No.
So again, I'm looking at this coaches. I'm looking at Nick Sirianni, and I'm saying, what do you bring to the table, my friend, besides the paper cups and the napkins?
Mm-hmm.
What do you bring to the table? That's the worst thing about a cookout, right? You stay away from the people that always say, "Oh, I'll bring the cups." Really? You're bringing the cups? I could bring my own cups. Bring something of real sustenance.
Some pizza, bring some wings,
bring a
something
pie.
to drink.
You know what I'm saying? Bring some beverages. Bring a case of water. Just bring something that can sustain it. Don't bring no damn cups and plates. And that was Nick Sirianni at the cookout, bringing napkins and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. Got to be better than that.
I got you, man. I got you. I those two, when I heard those two sound bites, man, I was like, oh boy. And that could, because it's not just coming from some guy who's been here for a minute like Britton Covey. It's coming from a future Hall of Famer in Lane Johnson. So, all right, let's get a timeout. We'll continue the Eagles momentum. I did want to throw this out there. Brandon Marsh had to have his knee scoped. Philly's outfielder. He's out 3 to 4 weeks with a left knee debridement. So that's a little bit of a blow, Tone, because they think he'll be ready for opening day, but they're already thin in the outfield depth-wise. So we'll get into that with Jim Salisbury, Derek Bodner coming up at 12 o'clock, but we'll keep the Eagles momentum going. I want to dive a little bit more into this window with Hurts. And then I got 3 critical questions that I'm going to bounce off of you, Eagles-wise. All right, so we'll do all that. When we come back, don't go anywhere. He's Tone. I'm Rob. We're Sports Take. Bravo Pizza of Havertown. Yes, thrilled that they are a part of the show. Been going there since I was a little kid. They're family-owned since 1985. You got Alex and the crew in there each and every day, putting out the absolute best product that you could possibly have. 20 different styles of pizza daily. They have slices to go. They have specialized pizza however you want it. They'll make it. But Bravo Pizza of Havertown doesn't just do pizza. They do fresh pasta, sandwiches, wraps, wings, salads. And they're also committed to the community. They have fundraisers all the time where they raise money for charities, for schools, for Little League, someone who's in need, whatever the case may be. The proceeds go to those organizations. You can follow them at the Bravo Pizza of on Instagram and Facebook for daily specials and promotions. They're located at 1305 Westchester Pike, Manoa Shopping Center, Havertown, Pennsylvania. 1305 Westchester Pike, Manoa Shopping Center, Havertown, PA. Give them a call, 610-446-3810, 610-446-3810. Bravo Pizza of Havertown.
I remember getting my heart broken when they lost the Super Bowl in 2004. We're big Eagles fans. We moved to South Philly because of the Eagles. When they won, we went straight to Broad Street, and everybody was going nuts over there, and it was just a memory that you'll never forget.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
We're back Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Rob Ellis, Tone Shields, hanging with you. Tone, let's hit a couple things. We had a lot of Eagles momentum early. We will get into the Sixers and all the moves they made or didn't make at the trade deadline at 12 o'clock with Derek Bodner. We'll talk some Phillies at 12:30. NFL, get you set for the big game on Sunday as well. So we got a lot to do here. All right. Question for you. More to prove in 2024. Nick Howie or Jalen?
That's really interesting. After
Mount
we just got
Rushmores,
finished,
if you will. Yeah.
After we just got finished, putting Nick Sirianni in the blender. It would imply that it's him, right? But he has almost no control over his situation anymore. So it's almost as if like he's just a passenger on this ride. I'm gonna go with Jalen Hurts because he's the franchise quarterback. He did have a down year. He regressed. He turned the ball over way too much, and he has to validate that contract. He has 4 years to do so. Obviously, Harry Roseman has to do his part, but I'm looking at the guy that we see on a daily basis that throws the ball and arguably has maybe the largest impact on the result. It's going to be so important for Jalen Hurts to get back to MVP form, in whatever form or whatever shape that looks like. I'm curious to know what Kellen Moore is going to bring to the table. Is he going to maximize his abilities there? Is he going to maximize the abilities that he already has? Is he going to expand his game and try to add more tools to the toolkit? I'm curious to know what that's going to look like in the throughout this offseason and season when everything kicks off. But overall, I think Jalen Hurts has to be the most stabilizing force throughout all of this stuff. Regardless of what's going on around him, Jalen Hurts has to be the one to deliver the ball from point A to point B and do his part. So I'm looking at Jalen Hurts as a guy who has the most to prove. Despite that contract, he's still a guy that's, viewed as an underdog, in my opinion. I'll admit, I felt like a lot of people, was kind of waiting for him to have a bump in the road. And look, I'm willing to argue if he was a first-round pick, people wouldn't talk about him the way they do. But because he was a second-round pick, and because things kind of went down the way they did at Alabama, and he kind of had an unconventional way of getting to his position, people, feel how they feel about him, and they like to, discredit him. But the fact of the matter is, Jalen Hurts had a bad year, and he gave people a lot of reasons to discredit him in 2023. So it's up to him to get back in the lab, work out the kinks to his game, and get back on track and lead this team, to promising pastures.
I would actually, everything you said makes perfect sense. I'd actually put Jalen third. Here's why. Nick, to me, is number one.
I hear you.
He doesn't do it, he's fired. He doesn't do it, it's going to look like you won and got to the Super Bowl the 1 year because you had insane talent and an easy schedule. I don't agree with all this. I'm just saying what the public perception is going to be.
Right.
It's gonna go down as one of the all-time collapses starting in 2023 into 2024 if he ends up getting fired. And he's going to be viewed as he was nothing more than just sort of a puppet along for the ride. He's out of a job. Jalen's not going to be fired. Right. I don't think Howie's going to be fired. Right. But Nick is coaching for his job here in Philadelphia. So I would put him most to prove as one. I'd put Howie at two. Go ahead. You want to jump in on that? Go ahead.
Oh yeah. At number two, I was going to put Nick. And then at three, I was going to put Howie because, again, like you said, I don't think Howie's going anywhere anytime soon. Obviously, he has a lot of work to do, but to your point, you bring it up all the time. He has a track record of bouncing back, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I had Nick too, for all the reasons you mentioned. It's funny you said, the perceptions are going to be that he rode the coattails of a really good roster and he had an easy schedule on the way to the Super Bowl. And I know you don't believe that today.
Yeah.
But there's going to come a point in time where you eventually start to believe that. The further we get away from it, the less he does, the less success he has going forward. If that's the case, eventually you're going to have to say to yourself, or at least ask yourself, did this man ride the coattails of this roster? I already believe that. But at some point, you're going to fall into that same place where I am.
I agree with you that's where it's going to go. I totally agree with you with that. And here's where why I'm going to go Howie number two. Because we know that he's capable of getting on a heater, and it's like nothing you've ever seen. It's like he's the Kyle Schwarber of GMs, like I said before. When it looks good, it looks incredible. But he's capable of years like last offseason. Think about last offseason from a Howie perspective. Brian Johnson, Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, all three mistakes. Then you go to what he did in the player-wise. Other than Jalen Carter, who was a hit, no doubt. Big question with the second first-round pick that you made. We don't know about the second-round pick, in fairness. Tyler Steen, who knows? You start to look at Nakobe Dean, who you nominated as the starting linebacker. It didn't work. You had no depth behind him if it didn't work out.
I like what you said there, nominated. Yeah. I like that.
There's nothing behind him if it didn't work. Then you go into the secondary, and you chose to bring back two older players. And yes, we were all on board with it, but it didn't work. You elected to sort of not even really have another safety to go with Blankenship. It was just kind of chaotic mess. That was a total disaster. It was a bad offseason for Howie. Just no other way to put it. He needs to bounce back. And he needs to start being consistent. I know you're not going to hit every draft pick. Nobody does. I know you're not going to get every move right. Nobody does. But the great ones have a level of consistency where there wasn't the drop, right? Mm-hmm. Just you're steady Eddie. He needs to be more steady Eddie than the up and down Howie. So I think a lot of his reputation is at stake. And I will say this, while I don't think he gets fired if they have a bad year, it's going to get to the point where Jeffrey Lurie's got to start thinking long and hard at the way things are set up right now.
And that's where I am, right?
Yeah.
It's going to get to a point where he has to revisit, because I don't think he's ever going to fire Harry Roseman. I think, if anything, like you just implied, there's going to be a separation of power somewhere. There's going to be some more delegation that he's going to be required to do. We know Harry Roseman's strengths. Harry Roseman is a great capologist. He understands the money. He knows how to move it. He knows how to, just think about the way he structured that Jalen Hurts contract. It's magnifique. You know what I mean?
He's brilliant at that.
The cap hits are spectacular, and that has real value in the NFL. The ability to balance a salary cap and an ability to really, make these contracts work and move the money around and give yourself flexibility. That's a real value in the NFL. There are teams who struggle with that habitually, and they find themselves in cap hell. Did you know, as an aside, real quick before I continue, did you know the New Orleans Saints are $80 million in the hole?
Yeah, they're screwed.
The Saints are $80 million in the
total
hole.
Malpractice. Yeah.
The Bills, I think they're about 60 or 40 million in the hole, around there. So listen, there are teams who are literally struggling to figure out their money situations, right? Maybe they don't struggle with evaluating talent, but they have a hard time keeping the guys in the building because they can't figure the money part out.
Yep.
Howie Roseman is a master at the money, and that's real valuable. But when it comes to identifying talent, at least draft talent, at least college prospects, he's not the guy I'm looking at. He does a good job with pro personnel. He knows how to identify guys in season. That's why, even though Kevin Byard and Shaq Leonard didn't really pan out, I respect the swing. And I want to try to be as fair as possible. And I talk about Howie Roseman, even though at times he bothers me, I want to be fair. I respect the swings he makes in season. He identifies things, he identifies the need, and he does whatever he can to try to get the best possible solution in there. I don't think either of us thought Kevin Byard would really fall off a cliff the way he did. I thought Kevin Byard would at least stabilize the position. I thought Shaq Leonard would bring something. But again, I respect the swing. Even the Robert Quinn move last year, I respect the swing. Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh, those panned out. I respect the swing. You got to respect the swing, even if you don't always hit. So again, I do see Howie Roseman as a guy that does have pressure on him because, like you mentioned, there can be serious changes to this structure if he doesn't make the right moves this offseason, especially when you start to consider that you have about a 4-year window to really maximize Jalen Hurts' youth, maximize how friendly the cap hits are,
right?
And also, you got to maximize this window you have with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the same roster while you have this offensive line still relatively intact, because Lane Johnson won't be here 5 years from now or 4 years from now.
Right.
Jason Kelce won't be here 4 years from now.
No, let's face it, most of the roster won't be. You might have one or two guys still remain. That's the way the NFL is.
And also, on top of that, if we really want to get dark, a lot of your top tier players, their contracts are going to have to be renegotiated around the same time. That 2026, 2027 window is going to be scary because you got Mailata coming up, you got Devontae coming up, you got Landon Dickerson coming up, you already got Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat coming up. I can go, those are the main. Jordan Davis, you're going to have to figure out what your plan is with him. Jalen Carter, will you pick up his 5th-year option? There's going to be so many decisions that have to be made in that 2026, 2027 window, to the point where as though you got to maximize this Jalen Hurts contract now. You have to.
Agreed. All right, let me hit you with the next one. More critical to come back this year in your estimation? Both guys could be gone. Kelce or Cox? Who's needed more?
Kelce.
Okay.
I think Kelce's needed more. Here's why. You're entering a situation where you have a new coordinator. Your head coach can't tell the right end from your head coach can't tell the front end from the back end. Like I said, new coordinator. Your quarterback is coming off of a bad season, so he needs to find a way to get back. Your quarterback has been struggling with the blitz. He needs the fairest shot of getting back on track with that, or at least improving that skill set with Kellen Moore. I just believe that Kelce, with all the turnover, can stabilize things, especially on our offensive line. And again, he's been playing at an all-pro level, first team all-pro at that, Pro Bowl level. He hasn't shown any signs of breaking down. He's been an Iron Man. I just believe Jason Kelce's value supersedes Fletcher Cox's, especially when you have, again, although they're young and we're still figuring out the depth of their talent base, or we're still trying to figure out how much of an impact they really can make over an extended period of time, you still got Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Milton Williams right there. And Marlon Tuipulotu is a guy he's okay. But again, you still got some guys, you still got some bodies that you can look at and say, okay, I feel comfortable with those guys. When it comes to Jason Kelce, I like Cam Jurgens, but can he stay healthy? Right? I like Cam, but is he the one I want to have in that prime center position when I'm going through this transition period with a new coordinator, with Jalen Hurts trying to figure out this blitz issue, right? Is he the guy I want there? I want Jason Kelce in that spot because I feel like he'll provide Jalen Hurts with the most confidence going forward.
I too would say Kelce for a lot of reasons. One, I think it's a hell of a lot harder to find a center who's going to be elite at the level like he is than to find a defensive tackle. And that's not in any way to demean Fletcher Cox.
No, you're right.
You can find one of those guys that can come in and do a nice job for you. So I think it's Kelce. And I also just think there's so many things that are invaluable that he would bring to the table still as far as leadership goes and all those kind of things. And Fletcher was a good leader too. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis talked about how he took them under their wing and he was happy to do that and all that. And that was great. But I just think with Kelce, there's so many levels and layers to what he does for a team, for Jalen Hurts, for everybody, that getting him back one more season, I think would be critical. I would certainly take him over Fletcher. It's a tough call. It's not easy. Both guys are great Eagles. Both guys are Hall of Fame Eagles. I think one's a Hall of Famer, but the other guy goes down in the pretty close category in Fletcher. So yeah, I wouldn't mind if either are back, but I don't think both will.
Yeah. It has to be for the right number, especially when it comes to Cox. It has to be for the right number.
Yeah.
And then Kelce, if he does decide to come back, I'm sure they're going to make the money work. But again, I just hope financially it all makes sense. Even for both Kelce and Fletcher Cox, if they decide to come back.
Right. All right. Also, elsewhere, who had a better 2023 in your estimation? Devontae Smith or Hassan Reddick?
That's a good question. I never even thought about that. Like that dynamic, comparing those two players. A better 2023, Devontae Smith or Hassan Reddick?
Double-digit sacks, 1,000-yard receiver.
I'm leaning more towards Devontae Smith.
Okay.
Because I feel as though no matter what was going on, Devontae was doing his absolute best to produce. And in that playoff game, we can argue he was the only one that showed up. Devontae has you see Devontae, Hassan Reddick, I would have said Hassan, but they hamstrung him, dropping him back. So, yes, he had the 11 sacks, but that kind of disappeared, on the back end of the season. And I felt like they held him back to an extent, and they weren't using him properly. So that works against him. So I got to go with Devontae Smith because in the second half of that season, especially when Dallas Goedert went down, Devontae was turning up. You know what I mean? He became super reliable. He was catching everything that came his way like he always does. Supreme leader, always holds himself accountable. Whenever things don't go right, he keeps his answer short and sweet. I got to catch a damn ball. Simple as that. And he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He tells it like it is. And he's a true professional. Not to imply Hassan Reddick is any of those things, but I just lean more towards Devontae Smith, especially with that playoff game hanging in my mind.
I would agree. Here's the thing. It wasn't even just the playoff game. Like, I know he was a little bit banged up at the end too, but he finished strong and Hassan didn't.
Yep.
Hassan didn't, man. I mean, Hassan was sort of like the way the rest of the team went.
Yeah.
Josh Sweat didn't give you much. Hassan didn't give you much. The team went the wrong way. Devontae felt like he was the only guy sort of pushing back against that and still making plays. There were only three guys that really stood out to me in the Tampa game that showed up: Devontae, Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham. And that was it. Like nobody else.
I would throw in Milton Williams in there too.
Okay.
I would throw him in. I would. But that's just me though.
Did I lose you for a second? Sorry. Nobody else.
Yeah, I thought I lost you for a second. You got me now?
Yeah, I got you. I'm saying nobody showed up but those guys, which
exactly. Yeah.
That's why I'm going Devontae. And I just think that he's getting better. Like his numbers are really good. They're not mind-blowing because he plays next to AJ Brown. It's only natural. If he was with another team, I think he'd be thought of in the real elite category. He's thought of as a sidekick when he's really a 1. He's just a 1A. AJ Brown's a top 5 receiver, a 1, and Devontae's a 1A. He's everything they thought and hoped he would have been when they took him out of Alabama.
Absolutely. Let's really put this thing in perspective, because Devontae Smith, he's an unsung hero for the Philadelphia Eagles. He keeps it low key. He doesn't say too much, but he still always produces. Devontae Smith, for his career with the Philadelphia Eagles, over 3 seasons, 240 receptions, just over 3,100 receiving yards, averages just over 13 yards a catch, 19 touchdowns. The dude has been reliable. 3 seasons in a row where he has 5 touchdowns or more. He has 7 in 2023. In 2022, he has 7. 2021, he had 5. In 2023, 1,066 yards. 2022, 1,196. 2021, 916. He gets better, gets stronger, gets more effective every single year. The dude is a first-round pick. He's proven to be a top 10 pick, especially playing next to AJ Brown, still giving you over 1,000 yards. You got to give credit where credit is due, man. And last year, he broke the single season reception record, and then AJ Brown obviously broke that record this season. So you have wide receivers in the building who are breaking records, who are producing. There's no reason this offense, and it gets back to our original point when we first started the show. When you got guys this talented, you can't waste this. You cannot waste this. And it kind of sheds light on why Jeffrey Lurie is making some would call knee-jerk decisions he's making. Some would say the panic decisions he's making. Can you kind of blame him, though? You gave Jalen Hurts $250 million. You got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on your roster, and Lord knows you're not going to be able to keep them on the same roster for 10 years just because of the money. You know that. So to an extent, can you blame Jeffrey for being aggressive or being a little antsy, at the wheel? It's kind of hard to blame him when you know the window is short.
No, I agree. I think too. Just to stay on Devontae for a minute, he's exactly the guy you want to try and get out of the wilderness from last year to this year, because he gets it. He's a no excuse guy. He keeps it real. He's not going to blow things up. He knows how to handle himself. He's not going off, in the media or anything. But when he's asked a pointed question, he gives a pointed answer, and he's a no nonsense guy. So I think he's exactly what you want. If you're trying to fix things, he's a fixer. What they need to do is weed out the guys who laid down last year. And if you can possibly, without cap ramifications killing you, you need to get rid of those guys, man.
Give me 2.
I don't have guys who laid down. I don't know.
Okay.
But here's what I'll say.
Because I don't have any guys in my mind right now, but I just wanted to know if you had any idea.
No, I really don't. But here's what I would say. And this is not, this guy didn't lay down. I just don't think he's good anymore. Bradbury can't be back. And he can't be back because he's not good enough on the field. And I think it sends a message that the only reason he is back is because of what he's being paid. You have to upgrade that in 2 ways. You have to get better on the field, and you also have to understand that there's consequences for not being able to play well enough. You have to change things. He's a great dude, but you got to move on.
Right. Yeah. Would I let him date somebody that
of course.
He's a gentleman. He's a smart dude. He holds himself accountable. You know what I mean? He's a good guy.
Yep.
But I'm sorry, this is the NFL. You know what I mean? This, he's not running for Congress. I need him to produce on the football field. And he's I never thought I'd say this about him. He is a liability at this point.
Yeah.
He is quite frankly a liability. And I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to James Bradbury.
I don't either. And here, I'll give you one example of, I'm not going to go as far as to say the guy quit and laid down. I think he just doesn't get it. There's got to be a conversation with Jordan Davis. I'm sure there already has, where you say to him, listen, Jordan, it doesn't matter where you were taken, man, where you were drafted, what you're making, whatever. If you're not prepared to play football for an entire season, you're going to be on the bench, man. Like, it is, you got a free pass last year where they kept putting him out there despite his struggles. That is done. That's done. He needs to understand that now, so he gets himself in the shape that he needs to be in once the season starts. And he maintains during the year.
Yes, that's why I have so much respect for coaches who aren't afraid to really buck the system. We saw Bill Belichick. And by no shape, way, or form am I comparing Bill Belichick to Nick Sirianni. Please follow me here, you guys. I want you guys to try to follow me. We saw Bill Belichick bench his best corner in the Super Bowl. Second best, right? At the time, did they have Gilmore? You know when the Eagles faced them, they had Gilmore, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Nonetheless, who was it? Was it not Bryce? But what was the name? What was his name?
Butler.
The corner that got benched.
Butler.
Yeah. We saw him bench one of his best corners, Butler, in that game. For Lord knows for whatever reason. He benched him. And he was non-existent in that game at all. So I say all that to say we got coaches in this league who, if you're not producing, they're going to sit your ass down and make you rethink.
That's where I think Fangio comes into play.
But here's the thing, right? Unfortunately, I don't think that's how the Philadelphia Eagles work. The way the Philadelphia Eagles work is, we draft you high, we're playing you. We're playing you. And we're paying you, we're playing you. Yeah. And my mindset is, okay, I understand the investment side of it. Money talks and BS walks. But if a guy is clearly a liability, how can you justify playing him? I'm not saying you bench him for the rest of the season, but I'm saying you need to send a message to him and say, look, if you're not playing well, or put it to you this way, because sometimes it's outside of your control. Sometimes you're trying hard and things just aren't working. If you're not even doing the bare minimum of making sure your body is ready for the rigors of an NFL season, if you're tapping out after week 8, week 9, we got a real issue.
No, I got you.
I'm playing the guys who want to be out there. I'm playing the guys who got the motor. I'm not playing anybody who's going to hold me back.
All right, let's hit it. Let's come back. Derek Bodner is going to join us. We'll talk about what the Sixers did yesterday at the trade deadline and, what moves happened around them as well. And we'll get his take on what the rest of the season is going to look like here. Quickie, get it in, come back, and then we will also talk to Jim Salisbury, talk some Phillies. All right, we'll tell you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to trust with your finances can be a scary proposition. And I'm right there at the front of the line. And it took me a long time to find the right people. And I found them with Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, you might have a small business and you're trying to get your employee benefits off the ground. That's another resource that Jim can help you with. Personally, I've entrusted my IRAs, my 401k rollovers with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be too. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You could also email him as well, Murray, MURRAY.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim@principal.com.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody. Rob Ellis, Go to Shields. We are Sports Take, hanging with you on this Friday. Big day yesterday in the NBA. NBA trade deadline came to a close at 3 o'clock yesterday, and the Sixers were active. The question is, how much were they helped? What was the true objective? And joining us right now to discuss all of these things is Derek Bodner. You can catch Derek's work on Twitter at Derek Bodner NBA, but also PHLY Sports does an awesome job there. Derek, how are you, my man? It's good to see you.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, Derek. So let's start with that one. Did you view it, what they did yesterday, more as let's stay afloat and hope that we can, not fall out of playoff contention, and then once you get best case scenario, you get Embiid back, and you actually have added a shooter with Hield? How did you view all the machinations and moves yesterday?
Yeah, I think Daryl's big objective here is he views the draft picks that he has. Right now, he could have traded up to 3 first-round draft picks at this trade deadline. Once we get into June and July, he can trade upwards of 5 first-round draft picks. I think he views, and he told you this right from the jump, he views those draft picks as his one way to get a long-term difference maker alongside Embiid and Maxey. I think he looked at what was available here. I don't even think this necessarily has to do with the uncertainty around Embiid. I think he looked at what was available here at the deadline. In his estimation, there wasn't a long-term difference maker they wanted to commit to as a third member of the core. So instead, he went for more marginal upgrades that didn't cost him any of those draft picks. So I think, when we can debate whether or not that was a right approach or not, I think that was his thinking. So he went for someone in Buddy Hield who they desperately need shooting. They desperately need gravity around Embiid. Can help keep them afloat a little bit here while Embiid mends. Can help play off of Embiid when they get into the playoffs if Embiid returns. I think that was his theory. I think my bigger issues were the other moves that he made, which are largely cost-cutting moves and to recoup some second-round draft picks. I think if you're going to go that half-measured approach, I think it needed to be followed up with a trade for a backup center, with a trade for maybe another wing. I think they have real shortages there. But when I look around, and maybe if you're going to have any pushback, I think it would probably be the players that were traded earlier on in the season, like OG Anunoby, like Pascal Siakam. I just don't think there was a difference maker available, so I agree with him in that regard. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of splitting the difference in terms of trying to improve a little bit now while keeping the powder dry if and when a big star becomes available.
Derek, thanks again for coming on to the show. You bring up a lot of good points. Daryl Morey has a balancing act, right? He doesn't want to pull the trigger too much because then you don't know when Joel Embiid is going to come back. You don't know what his health situation. You don't know what his health situation is in the long term. With so much cap flexibility coming, especially in the off season, with all the draft picks on and so forth. Speak on the pressure that's mounting on Daryl Morey, to turn the Sixers team into a contender.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason they have cap space in the summer is because Tyrese Maxey has a cap hold. Basically, he counts $13 million against the cap until they sign him. When they sign him, that's going to be upwards of $30+ million. That big gap between those two is why they have some cap space. So there's really only, in terms of using that cap space to try to lure a star, whether that's in free agency or trade, they have to pretty much do it by July. So you have, the NBA draft is probably the biggest, most active trade period of the season, even more active, at least in terms of star movement, than the trade deadline. That, along with free agency, is really his window. He has to nail it in one of those two spots. So, yeah, I think he'll tell you, and he's talking later today, I'm sure he will tell you, hey, we've got Embiid and Maxey in cap space. That's very rare. That's true. It's also true that there aren't really any players that you can use to sign with that cap space. And again, I think the cap space is sometimes spoken as only signing when there's a lot of trade flexibility that comes along with that because of a convoluted CBA that we don't have time to get into. But there's some trade flexibility there too, but the window is pretty short. And passing on it here does put a lot of pressure that they have to nail it in June and July. They have to.
And that's the interesting thing, Derek, because people will debate this all the time. How good is that free agency window, right? And how much of a splash can you make? I mean, I know there's some talk. Chris Haynes threw this out there yesterday that they would be players for Paul George, which comes with its inherent concerns for me with the injuries and the shoulder surgeries and all that. But some of the other guys that are available, like, are they realistic? I mean, is LeBron? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's an like DeRozan. Okay, quickly.
Yeah.
There's some of the guys that are out
I
there.
mean, look,
Harden.
I grew up in Philly. We're all living in Philly. I wouldn't move from LA to Philly. Just being honest. Like, no,
if I had the money to live in LA, I hear
exactly.
that.
And
that's
look,
a good point, DB. It's a good point.
That's his hometown, Paul George. That is like they've won like 27 of the last 32 games. Are playing great basketball. I don't see LeBron changing their situation. I think they're where they want to be.
Right.
No, the free agency class, because a lot of the players who you would target, like Siakam, like Anunoby, like Drew Holiday, have already been traded. And the assumption there is that they were traded to teams who want to keep them around long term. So you don't expect that they'll even be available. And that even then you were worried about those contracts. Those players are probably going to be overpaid. That's part of the nature of free agency. You don't usually get players on good value contracts. By definition, you almost have to be the team willing to pay the most. So it does come back a lot to trades. And again, this can get super complicated, so I'm going to try to avoid that. But there's a new collective bargaining agreement where there is a second apron, and that introduces all kinds of limitations on teams that basically go over a salary cap threshold. I think because of that contract signed in prior years, teams are going to want to get off of them. And in the NBA, you have to match salary in a trade unless you're under the salary cap. So because the Sixers will be upwards of $60 million under the salary cap, they can take back stars or quasi-stars, borderline all-stars, that kind of caliber player. They have a ton of flexibility. And you combine that with the 5 first-round draft picks that they can trade, they do have a lot of trade flexibility. And I say that knowing that there's not a list of trade candidates we can really look at like there is in free agency. It kind of comes down to which teams get fed up or just think they need to change between now and June, which stars feel like they need to change. It happens all the time, but I think there's so much ambiguity there and uncertainty that it's tough to sell that right now, especially when you have and I feel like maybe the pressure to win this year has been dampened a little bit because there's uncertainty around Embiid, whereas like 3 weeks ago, everyone was, you can't waste a season of Embiid. Now we don't know because we don't know if he's going to come back and be the same kind of player. But even still, that's a consideration. You have Embiid playing at this level. You have Maxey. You wanted to get reinforcements now. And I think if Daryl Morey had his druthers, I think he would have preferred to get someone, let's say, just throwing out a hypothetical. If Mikal Bridges said, get me out of Brooklyn, which he'd be in his right to, they're playing garbage basketball. If he said that, I think Daryl Morey would have been aggressive at this trade deadline. I'm not sure they had the ammunition to get it done, but I think he would have been aggressive. I just don't think he felt like there was that player worth pursuing available now. You can make a real case that Buddy Hield was the best player traded yesterday. And that's not saying a ton about Buddy Hield. That's saying that most of the real big names and real impact players were traded in November, January, like earlier on in the season.
To your point, Derek, about the Joel Embiid factor. Joel Embiid's health has been a topic of contention for the past several years, and it always seems to hit them in the playoffs when it matters most. Now it's kind of hit them in the middle of the season, and although there is some optimism about him coming back, should they consider shutting him down for the season again? They have 4 more years left on this contract with Joel Embiid. Should they in any shape, way, or form be trying to rush this guy back for a playoff run that likely they might not be able to really make any deep run?
Yeah, I don't think so. Like a meniscectomy is what Embiid had, even though if they've avoided using the word even for surgery and tear. He had a meniscectomy on the meniscus. They basically removed the portion of the meniscus that was injured. That has a pretty predictable short-term recovery. Long-term, there's all kinds of arthritis concerns and whatnot, but short-term, that should alleviate the pain, and playing on it is usually pretty predictable. Like I said, it's more long-term, years down the line, even decades down the line in his life. There's those kind of concerns, but I think like I said, it should be a pretty predictable surgery and injury right now. So I don't necessarily think they need to shut him down. I'm not even sure there'd be all that much gain from the orthopedic surgeons I've talked to, but you always do want to be cautious. I get that instinct. I just think this is one injury where, not that you don't want to be cautious, but I think there's less risk factor in bringing him back.
Derek, let's say everything goes perfectly and Embiid is able to come back for a couple of weeks of ramp up and, blah, blah, blah. And we'll get into where you think they may finish in the standings. But let's say they make the playoffs. He does come back and he's feeling pretty well and his conditioning is solid. Okay. Adding Heald, adding Campaign, the guys that they brought in yesterday to go with the guys who are already here, Tobias, Maxey, Batum, et cetera. How do you feel about that team if all things are clicking health-wise, which is a big if?
Offensively, I think Heald is going to be what they need. Like, I think they need that kind of player with gravity. When he is off ball, his defender does not help off of him. I got to wrangle the cat a little bit here. His defender does not help off of him. That creates space for everyone around him. He has there aren't that many players who have real legitimate gravity where the opponent is just terrified of leaving him. He does. He will shoot as many threes per possession, per minute, whatever have you, of anyone in the league. And I think that does have value, especially when you're talking about playing alongside of Joel Embiid. They can run a little bit of the stuff that they ran in past years with Seth Curry, with JJ Redick. They can do that with him. So I think he's going to help both Maxey and Embiid out. I do think that's significant. He's a flawed player, but I think his skill set is what this team needs. That being said, I look up and down this roster, and I don't know how they stay competitive defensively. Like, they're better defenders. Someone like Batum is older and has a soft tissue injury. Robert Covington hasn't played in a month, if not more, and there's no timeline when he'll get back. DeAnthony Melton's been, fighting a back injury for the better part of a year.
Very underrated storyline, in my opinion, too.
Yeah, and this was something he was dealing with last year. They thought it was better over the offseason. It was better to start the season, and then it popped back up, and now they've been real cautious with him. So their three best perimeter defenders are injured and aging, at least with two of them. Melton's still pretty young. And then you look at everyone else from Maxey to Heald to the rest of their rotation. Kyle Lowry, if they bring in, and Kyle Lowry used to be a very good defender. Now at 37, he doesn't have the foot speed to do that anymore. I don't know who, if you're going up against Boston, I don't know who you put on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They just have if you're going up against Milwaukee, and I think Milwaukee has a lot of the same concerns. I don't know how they defend either, but who do you put against Dame or Giannis? They just don't have very many good options for that. That's my biggest concern. I think offensively, what they've put together makes a lot of sense. I think it makes sense around Embiid and Maxey. There's the injury concern, which is obviously there. There's a depth concern, and then there's a how the hell do you defend everybody else concern.
Look, real quick, Tone, let me follow up on one more. What do you say to hey, they gave away some guys that had some toughness, and this is something they've maybe lacked over the years. Pat Bev, Morris, et cetera. Is that a real legitimate concern, or is that just kind of a sort of a fan favorite sort of thing?
Little column A, little column B.
Okay.
Like Morris, I don't concern about Morris because, he might have toughness on the glass, but his defense was atrocious. He was one of the worst defenders in the league. He certainly has his offensive talent, can get you a bucket. And times like this, when half your team is out, you can run a little bit of mid-post ISO with him, and he has a chance. But defensively, he was real bad. So if the toughness doesn't really translate to defense, I don't really care too much about the toughness. Now, Pat Beverly, that toughness did translate to defense. He would be fighting for rebounds. He would be fighting through screens. I think that will be a loss. I would say Kyle Lowry has toughness too. The problem, like I said, is Kyle Lowry is 37 instead of 34, 35. And I'm just not sure if physically his foot speed, if he's capable of translating that toughness into productivity. So I think there's a legitimate concern there. I'm not sure it's necessarily all that avoidable because I do think once and I think Kyle Lowry is pretty much just, it's a matter of time. I think they're very confident they will get him. Once Kyle Lowry became available, I think Nick Nurse was going to play him over Pat Beverly, and I think the reason they traded Beverly is because they wanted to get him a chance to still play. I think that's still important to him. But yeah, it's look, like I said, perimeter defense, and we can call that toughness or what have you. Toughness is certainly a big part of that. Huge concern of mine, for sure.
DB, I don't want to imply that Tobias Harris is a stellar defender, but I mean, he's a wing. He has length. He has size. He, from a physical perspective, from a measurable perspective, he should be able to match up with most of the wings, most of the top wings in the league. Speak on the amount of pressure that's on him, to step up for this team. Maxey's been doing the best he can. A lot of teams are crashing on Maxey now. There's going to come a point in time when Tobias Harris has to be more aggressive and really, stake his claim, on the Sixers roster. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, defensively, Tobias has held up one-on-one pretty well in the playoffs against some pretty tough matchups. Off-ball is, I think, when his defensive concerns come in. He can get caught watching the ball, get caught flat-footed off-ball, all that stuff. But one-on-one, he's certainly an option and one that they'll need now probably more than ever. Look, in terms of aggressiveness, we all know who Tobias Harris is. Like, when he's going well, he's going to play well. When he struggles, he's going to overthink it, and decisions are going to come a second late, and he's going to pass up shots, and that's sort of who he is. I'd love to tell you, yeah, they need him more now than ever, and he needs to step up. But I mean, we've seen this all play out before. Yeah, they absolutely need him, especially with Embiid out. But even when he comes back, but I can't get my hopes set too high. And look, from his perspective, he needs to be aggressive too. He needs a new contract. He's going to be one of the bigger name free agents on the market right now.
Yep.
They need an aggressive, decisive version of Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris needs an aggressive, decisive version of Tobias Harris to get paid. I just don't have confidence that we'll see it.
Real quick, if I can follow up, Rob.
Yeah, go ahead.
DB, so to that point, is there any scenario where the Philadelphia 76ers can say, look, Tobias, we like you. We think you're a solid piece, to have a part of this future we have, this future that we're trying to build. For the right price, we would love to have you back. Do you see any scenario where Tobias Harris will be a Sixer in the following season?
Boy, Sixers fans would be thrilled. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead, Derek.
I mean, look, Sixers fans wanted him traded just to be traded. They didn't even, it's a great trade. Who'd we get back kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think Daryl Morey views him that way. Like, I think there is in order to trade him, he would have actually had to get a productive player back. I'm not going to say no chance, because I think Tobias is going to get a pretty big decrease in his salary in this coming year. Like I said, there's all kinds of new CBA, and it makes paying these sort of middle tier guys tough. So I think he's going to have a bit of a rude awakening in that regard. And if it gets low enough, could it happen? I'm not saying it's impossible. A lot of it comes down to whether or not they get who they want in terms of a trade and free agency. Because in order to have cap space for a free agent signing, you would have to renounce a lot of players like Tobias. So it would be tough to bring him back if that happens. But if it happens via a trade, then you have a little more flexibility. I'm not going to say there's no chance. I think it's a pretty low chance, though.
Derek, let me ask you this off-season approach. And I let me just be clear. I don't think they'll do this, but do you have to give some consideration to potentially trading Embiid, understand what the diminished returns you might get, simply because how many times can you put yourself through this where he's playing incredibly, but his body can't hold up? Do you reach a point where you just say, we can't keep doing this, or are they nowhere near that point in your estimation?
Well, I mean, they never will be near that point. There's never been a team that's traded a MVP caliber player, a player playing at an MVP level, without that player asking out. It just doesn't. It just doesn't happen. They're too tough to
and
try.
Your category's 100%.
She's very needy right now.
Yes.
If I ever stumble over my words, a lot of times that's the reason why.
Blame the cat at all times.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
But I think if you were to say that, we can't rely on him, your hope would be they can get another key contributor. We can label that whatever you want, but an all-star caliber player through trade or free agency, and Tyrese Maxey can continue to, who's only 23 still, can continue to grow and maybe be a 1 or a 1A option alongside Joel Embiid. So you're a little less reliant on him. I think they would much rather go that. If they get to the point where we just can't trust them, I think they would hold out hope that Maxey can continue to develop rather than just hit the reset button and hope that whatever they get back for him can eventually. Because, if you trade Joel Embiid right now, not that Maxey's on the clock, but he's starting his second contract. If you're not competitive in 3 years with him, who knows how long he's going to want to be here too.
True.
So I think they are going to want to try to find a way to make it work with Embiid, Maxey, and player to be named later. I don't think a reset button is in the realm of possibility.
Speaking of Maxey, on a more positive side, right? Maxey's rise has been truly stellar to watch. Now he's an all-star. Every year he's gotten better in every part of his game: assists, scoring, efficiency. He's even gotten a little better on defense, just a little bit. Just speak on what you've seen from Tyrese Maxey, this season, and how you've been documenting or chronicling his arc, to being an all-star.
It really is just it's wild. I feel like Philly almost hasn't embraced him as much as they should. He is. I said before the season he's the closest thing to Jalen Hurts in a basketball uniform, but nowadays that might not be quite the compliment it was back then. But in terms of his work ethic, he is 6'2", he's physically undersized. Yeah, he's got elite speed, but other than that, his physical profile is not that of a elite NBA superstar. He should, just by pure physics, he should not be, or genetics, he should not be one of the 20 best players in the world, and he has a chance to become that, and he does that in large part. He came in the league, he shot 29% at Kentucky from 3. He shot 29% his first year in the NBA. He became not just a passable shooter. And like when you were watching him, you said, all right, well, he's really quick coming off of the screens, off pick and rolls on the perimeter. If he can just be a passable shooter and teams can't go under him, he has a chance to be a good player in this league. Well, he didn't become a passable shooter. He became one of the best in the world. And that's not something that comes with any kind of any kind of physical gifts or anything like that. Like, he worked on it and he worked hard on it. And I give him a lot of credit for that. He has his defensive concerns for sure, but almost none of them are effort related. He's gotten to the point where he is, yes, in part because of blazing speed, but in large part because he has worked very hard to make his game to the point where he can take advantage of that. And I give him all the credit in the world. The attitude is right. The work ethic is right. He has his limitations, like I said, defensively in terms of times as a passer. But for everything that's within his control, I think he's done that, and I think he deserves all the praise in the world.
Derek, who helped themselves the most yesterday? Was it the Knicks? Was it somebody else in your estimation?
No, I think it was probably the Knicks. I think what they've done here, and that's in part because of what they did earlier in the season with OG, but I also think, Burks and Bogdanovich are going to help them. And I'm not sure how much are going to help them in the long term, like in terms of the playoffs, because I think Bogdanovich might not be, his defense is bad enough where it might be tough for them to play him in the playoffs, certainly in certain matchups. But in terms of getting through the regular season, because they're going through their own injury problems as well, and maintaining their seeding, I think they probably helped themselves the best. It was sort of like, it was an active trade deadline, but it wasn't really an impactful one. Yeah. So I think in terms of players who actually, good teams who actually acquired players who will play significant roles, I think they probably did the most.
All right, follow up. What the heck is Chicago doing?
I have no idea. It's really, they're frustrating. And I think that's part of, I think if you ask Daryl, and we will later today, that's probably part of their frustrations. A lot of the teams they expected to be sellers, or at least who rationally should be sellers, weren't really looking to sell. Teams like Chicago, teams like the Nets, teams like even the Hawks, either weren't really interested in selling or wanted exorbitantly high prices for who they were trying to sell. And a team like Chicago, who's, they said there's been all kinds of reporting that they want to remain competitive. You haven't been competitive all year. What do you mean remain competitive? To hold on to who they have, especially like a player like Caruso, who's going to go into the last year of his contract. He's going to be tougher to trade, or at least tougher to get value for, the same value for at this time next year. It's not any kind of rationality. But then again, a lot of times, a lot of these decision-making processes aren't really just about what's best for the long term of the team. They're also what can keep my job. And that's a huge factor in all of these. I think that's probably playing a factor there in Chicago, because what they're doing in terms of keeping their assets and trying to make use of them, it defies rationality.
DB, Nick Nurse, speak on your observations from Nick Nurse as the head coach. If you can make any comparisons between him and how Doc Rivers formerly ran this team, and obviously now Doc is in Milwaukee. That's a whole other conversation how he got that job. But speak on just Nick Nurse's impact. What's been your overall thoughts of how he's been coaching his team, how the team has been responding to him, so on and so forth.
Would you ask Pop that question?
Oh my God, that scared.
Yes,
that
Derek.
scared the hell out of me.
1 and 5, by the way. 1 and 5. Not that I'm enjoying this.
Oh my God, that was gold.
This is what happens when you bring a podcaster on your show. I've got a mixing board and a soundboard right in front of me.
I love it.
That one has never left my
button.
Nor
should it. Yeah.
I'm going to say it slow so we can all pick it up.
The only other Doc one I still have left.
I like that.
Look, Nick is, I think, much more creative in terms of what he looks to do. Doc, I always said it felt like his goal was to get a real good base system in place and then try to push that through the playoffs. And I think for the most part, he gets it. It's sort of Milwaukee so far notwithstanding. He gets a pretty good base system in place that works well in the regular season. It caters to his stars, makes his stars happy for the most part during the regular season. And then when the playoffs come around, he either can't or won't adjust. And I think we saw that with the Clippers. We saw that when he came here. And that is who he is. And I don't necessarily think he's a terrible coach, but I think coaching in today's NBA is tougher than it's ever been because of rule changes that make it tougher to defend in terms of hand checking, because of the increased emphasis on spacing and the versatility of a lot of the players. The offensive skill level is higher than it's ever been. And I think in order to be a winning coach in the playoffs, a real coach that you trust, you have to be able to adapt on the fly. And part of that comes down to trying out more schemes, being a little more flexible in the regular season so that when you get to the playoffs, you know what's going to work and you know what's going to counter other people's sets. And I think Doc just doesn't want to do that. I think his belief is that he is going to master vanilla, so to speak, and that's going to ride them to a title. And I think it was tough at times. both of them can be confrontational at times in media. That's fine. Like, you get asked questions by annoying people like us every day. Eventually, you're going to have one or two moments where you don't love them. But I think for the most part, what I come down to is he just was not able to adjust and adapt on the fly in the playoffs. And Nick, throughout his tenure, whether that is his tenure in Toronto, has shown that he is capable and willing to do that. I think they are playing, getting more out of role players for most of the year. That's obviously not been the case here over the last couple of days. When you lose 80% of your starting lineup, there's only so much adaptation you can have. But I do think Nick is more creative, and I think that shows.
Derek, thanks, man. And keep up the good work. You could follow Derek at Derek Bodner NBA on Twitter /X, and also PHLY, where he's doing an amazing job covering the Sixers on a daily basis. Derek, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for a couple of minutes.
Appreciate you. Thank you,
my
Derek,
pleasure.
and thank
All
you,
right,
Doc.
Take care.
Appreciate
That's
you guys.
Derek Bodner.
Anytime.
Yeah. And the sounds. Derek and the sounds and the cat. And we got it all. All right. Let's get a quick stoppage in here, and we will come back and we will talk to Jim Salisbury. We'll talk some Phillies because there is a little Phillies news today. Not great news, but there is Phillies news. So we'll talk to Jim. We'll get into all the NFL stuff, all the Super Bowl stuff. We got a lot to do. That's for sure. Don't go anywhere. All right. Let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. If you have a home, business, or property that you own and you go through the pain and the inconvenience of water, fire, smoke, mold damage, you name it, it can be really challenging. If you're not sure who to turn to, well, I'm telling you, it's Pro Action Restoration. They're on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. I went through it with some water damage in my house. They came out, they fixed the problem. They took care of it, and they worked in conjunction with my insurance company. So I knew each step of the way, how much it cost, how everything was going, and it could not have worked out better. They are licensed, bonded, fully insured, serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action, as I mentioned, will work in conjunction with your insurance company. And also, again, whether it's water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation, you name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up, and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday. Watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the sports betting show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Friday, as we say.
is.
That is Tony Shields. I am Rob Ellis. Just wrap things up with Derek Bodner. You can check that out at JAKIBSports.com, that interview. All right, let's set our sights on baseball here. And pitchers and catchers, Tone. We are sitting here now, remarkably, February 9th. Pitchers and catchers report next week to Clearwater. It is that time of year. The truck left yesterday. Drove down 95. That's always a sign. That to me is a sign of spring. Forget about the groundhog. So joining us right now, he has done an amazing job covering the Phillies for a very long time. No one I respect more in the game than our next guest, the one and only Jim Salisbury. Jimmy, good to see you. Welcome to the show. How's everything going?
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
Jim. And it's always good to see
show,
you.
sir.
And that is Tone. And this is a sign of spring, Jim, that we're having this conversation. And that's a good thing for me. Well, let's start with a little news that popped earlier. Brandon Marsh had to get the knee scope. Doesn't seem like a huge deal, and they still anticipate he'll be ready for the start of the season. But, Jim, that's an area that there was some concern with to begin with depth. I thought they do a little bit more in the offseason. They didn't necessarily. Is that an area that concerns you for them?
Yeah, I guess so. Especially with this news today. I mean, it sounds like it was just a cleaning out of the knee, and he'll be back in 3 or 4 weeks. And the team says he'll be ready for opening day. But I guess if it concerns you, it's because they really didn't turn Brandon Marsh loose last year. They protected him against a lot of lefties, and then Rojas came up, I think, before his time, but played well defensively, struggled, as we know, in the postseason offensively. So, I think they're largely unproven in that area, but at some point you got to play the young guys and see what you got. I think all winter long, though, they have been out there kind of looking for supplemental extra outfielders, and maybe this will keep them on that path. We'll see if they get somebody. But, it's, to me, it's not an alarming development. It's not a great development, but I think he'll be ready to go. It sounds that way. And, we'll see what happens, but it's potentially a pretty good area if Rojas becomes the player they think he can be, but he needs to improve a lot offensively. If Marsh can become the player they think he can be, but eventually he needs to hit lefties. I mean, there's real promise there. I think that's why they were reluctant to go out and really get somebody established. They want to see what these guys can do. And they've both done it in flashes here and there. I just kind of see that outfield as sort of a Marsh, Pache, Rojas triumvirate to start with Rojas getting the first look in center field to see what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if it's not going to work, you have to adjust. I mean, I've always kind of looked at the first third of the season to get a handle on what you have. And then, the second third of the season, make adjustments. And then, after that, hit your stride. That's for a good team. And they are a good team. So we'll see.
Mr. Salisbury, thanks again for coming on to the show. We really appreciate your time and your efforts. You mentioned a couple young guys, Rojas and Marsh. I even throw Stott in there as well. Who, by your estimation, who are you most excited to see break out? In this upcoming season, Stott and Marsh. There was a point in time last year where they were kind of carrying the OGs a little bit, but again, Who are you looking most forward to take that next step in their development, especially with the Philadelphia Phillies being in such a critical time in their franchise? You know, with all these stars on the roster.
Yeah, a lot of stars, and right in the middle of their championship, window when they need to win a championship, and they need to win when you got a big payroll, you got great players. Probably, if I had to pick one guy that I'm really eager to see him build on 23 and see what he can do in 24, I would say Stott and Bohm.
Yep.
I really think both former first-round picks. I thought Bohm really improved a lot last year defensively. I think he's much more comfortable in his own skin. I could see his confidence last year. He's always hit well with men on base. A lot of people are quick to point out that, he's a big guy. Where's the more consistent power? Well, I just kind of the mindset that leave him alone and let it develop. If it's going to come, it's going to come. He's still a pretty gifted hitter. His swing has always been kind of inside out. And that's fine. Not everybody has to, use the bat head like a tomahawk, but eventually he's going to learn to use the bat head in a way that fits him. And I think he'll have some big seasons. And Stott, and Stott's, the thing that jumps out about him is the selectivity at the plate. He's always had it. And he's a very good defender at second base. So you could be looking at a kid who could be ready to, he was nominated for a Gold Glove as a finalist last year, right? You could be looking at a guy who could be a Gold Glove winner, hit 300, be a mainstay for a decade, and possibly even, hit leadoff someday. Rob Thompson has always kind of fantasized about him in the leadoff hole. So I would say those two guys. But Marsh could certainly fit in that category if he gets a little more consistent. He had that really great start last year. And you certainly would like to see him emerge. You gave up a pretty good catching prospect to get him. Christopher Sanchez is another guy. I thought he really was a young player who kind of started to find his sea legs a little bit last year. See what he can do and build on. Can Kerkering build on what he did last year? Certainly a lot of talent in all those young guys that I mentioned. And one of the big things that I noticed in young players is it takes a little time for them to believe they belong. It takes a little time for them to believe they can do it at the big league level with the best players in the world. And, I saw a lot of that coming through in Bohm last year. I think Stott has always had it. I see a real kind of confident kid. And Sanchez started to pick it up a little bit last year. Even, Rojas, that could be part of his thing. He's got to believe it. But he also needs to make some adjustments at the plate. So they, mentioned they have superstars, and they do up and down the lineup, but they also have intriguing young guys that I think are poised and capable and have the ingredients to improve and become big parts of this team. They already are big parts of this team in the case of Bohm and Stott.
Jim, you brought up Sanchez. Let me ask you about the back end of the rotation. Sanchez and Taijuan Walker. What's your concern level with those guys? And how much do you think that may be an area that they look at as like you said, that third part of the season as we get into it? Frankly, Walker scares the heck out of me. I know they're into him for a big number here, but what do you think happens there?
Well, like I said, I think you kind of survey and get a good feel for what you have and do a lot of evaluating early in the season, the first, a couple months, and then the second, third, you're making your adjustments. So, those are areas that I'd be really looking at. The back, one of my big concerns with this team is, and I like their starting pitching. Wheeler, how can you not like him? How can you not like Nola? Ranger Suarez. Talk about guys who might be ready to put it together. You might see him one of these years have a real standout season. I guess if I had a concern on this team, it is starting pitching. How it's going to hold up, it's always your concern. How is their pitching in general going to hold up, even stretching out to the bullpen? In particular with the starters, I'd be curious to see what the drop-off is going to be after 1 and 2. And you hope there's no drop-off. You hope Ranger is going to have a strong season for you, certainly capable of it. So then the question becomes, what's the drop off after 3? I know Walker had some wins last year, led the team in wins, I think with 15, gave you like upwards of 160 innings is real value there. But we all know the story. He wasn't, he didn't pitch in the postseason. And then Sanchez, despite improvement last year, still in a lot of ways is unproven. So, and then beyond that, you just don't have a lot of depth. And who goes through a season with only 5 starters? So I still think, it would behoove them to bring in some more starting pitching depth, maybe. And I think they did pursue some. Guys just went elsewhere because there are opportunities, more ironclad opportunities in other rotations. But I do think they'll need some more rotation depth, and I wouldn't put it past Dombrowski to bring some more in, possibly in a swing role that could go out and also help in the bullpen. I also think a guy like Sanchez could pitch out of the bullpen. So I would be still looking for another outfielder for a little more depth, perhaps a right-handed hitter. And I would be looking for more pitching depth, both in the bullpen and the starting rotation, especially in starting rotation. I think bullpens is something that you can keep churning and tweaking all season long, right up until the trade deadline. A lot of teams do it. I mean, the Phillies have done it in the past. You can get great results from a shrewd move in the month of July. And I think there'll be, I think there'll be a good amount of talent out there. There is every year in terms of bullpens. When you look at some of the names that are being bandied about now as potential trades, well, we're a week before spring training. A lot of these teams will go into this season with those relievers, see how they're doing, and then they'll make their own adjustments in that second third of the season and maybe pedal some of those guys. So you could see the Phillies look to improve their bullpen that way. But in terms of rotation, I like it, but I have concerns about the depth and I have concerns about the drop off probably after 3.
Speaking of moves and improving a roster, Dave Dombrowski, he was just on WIP recently, and one of the things that he said that stood out to me was, just because we're quiet doesn't mean we're not active.
Right.
And he's made a lot of moves, during his time here, bringing in Bryce, Trey Turner, so on and so forth. How much optimism does Dombrowski provide the Philadelphia Phillies? Again, he's made a lot of moves. He's been very aggressive. He's shown an ability that he's trying to win and win now. How much optimism, again, does he provide this Phillies team?
Well, if I were a Phillies fan, I would have a lot of optimism and faith in Dombrowski. He's going to the Hall of Fame someday. He's proven, he's been there, done that. He's a proven winner. And you have a very big payroll, and they're going to go over the luxury tax likely again this year for the 3rd straight year. You have stars that are now getting over the age of 30. You have a very committed ownership group that wants it bad. You have Dombrowski wants it bad. He didn't come out of retirement in his mid 60s to preside over a rebuild. They were 2 games from winning the World Series 2 years ago, and 2 games from getting back there last year. It's their time. It's what everyone is focused on in that front office and that ownership group. And Dombrowski's a guy that knows the way there. Just because, only one big move this winter, Aaron Nola, and it's one of the biggest moves in baseball. Not a lot going with. Doesn't mean they didn't try to do things. I saw him quoted earlier that they had a pretty attractive offer for Kerkering for starting pitcher early in the offseason, and they wanted to hang on to Kerkering. So I do believe they made, as I mentioned, I think they need starting pitching depth and maybe swingman type depth that you can use in the bullpen or put Sanchez out there. I think they pursued those guys. A couple of them landed in other spots recently. A couple of guys that I believe that they did pursue. So, there's always, even though the surface looks calm, there's always a whole lot of action going on underneath, and it'll continue right through spring training. I mean, I remember 10 years ago, spring training started. Day one, they signed A.J. Burnett. One spring, they signed Jake Arrieta in spring training. One spring a few years ago, they brought in Brad Hand. So I just think there's still enough guys out there that they'll do something to get some more pitching depth or even something in the outfield here as camp begins. And then, you can keep tweaking and improving, right up until that trade deadline.
Rob,
Jim,
Rob,
yeah,
sorry.
yes, go ahead, Tom.
If I can quickly follow up really quickly, Miss
Sure.
Salisbury. To your point about taking advantage of everything now, and Dombrowski, he didn't come out of retirement for a rebuild, right? Getting back to the NLCS, let alone the World Series, gets harder and harder every time, especially when you lose. Speak on the odds of mental fatigue potentially creeping into this team. Again, they've made it to that hilltop and they've come close, but they haven't really been able to strike gold yet. Speak on that mental fatigue and how it could impact this team.
Yeah, I think you kind of just laid it out there. They haven't struck gold yet, and these are proud professionals that are there. Hey, the paychecks are nice, right? The big paychecks are nice, but there's sort of this stages of a professional athlete, at least that I've been able to gather over the years. And it's like, okay, number one, I want to get there. I want to be a major leaguer. I want to establish myself. And then, I want to get paid. and then it's incomplete if I don't have a championship. And they have a lot of guys that have gotten there, have gotten paid, don't have that championship ring and want it. I mean, are you telling me Bryce Harper's not, I'm not saying you're saying this, but
Right, I got you.
Rhetorically, Bryce Harper's hungry. He's starving for a ring. Trey Turner wants another one. Castellanos, he was holding up his finger at second base to get my ring. Bohm has shown some fire. Real Muto wants it. Real Muto is a total pro. And I'm forgetting Kyle Schwarber, who has been there, has a ring, knows what it feels like. So I don't see, and again, anything is possible. You raise a really valid point, but I think there's so much pride and so much desire and so many unfulfilled championship dreams and desires in that clubhouse that I don't see that as being a problem. I remember years ago when the Yankees were on their great run, it seemed like every year they brought in a different guy around their core that hadn't won. And that hunger kind of kept everybody's edge. I remember talking to Bernie Williams about it, about how they never seemed to get
complacent,
fat, big-headed. And his quote was great. I've used it a few times. He always says, yeah, that's because the only day we get giddy is the day of the parade. Otherwise, they're focused on doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think there's a hunger here. I think there's talent here. I think there's a hunger here. It extends right up to ownership. John Middleton and his partners, they want a championship really, really badly. And they've put their money where their mouth is.
Mm-hmm.
Dombrowski wants one really, really bad, another one. Harper, he talks about all the time. The fans want it. Look at the way they light up that ballpark every October. So I don't see complacency as being a problem with this team. Time will tell. I'd be stunned if it is.
Let me ask you about Harper. You had a whole offseason to not have to rehab, to work on his game, playing first base, Jim. We know that now. What do you expect out of him this year in the field or just in general?
Same. It's the first year that he's healthy in a while, completely healthy. So maybe, he's going to take off again and have another MVP type season. But I expect him to have another great season and hit the ground. I thought he hit the ground running at first base. He's an athlete. As a kid, he was a catcher. He's got hands. I think he played a little third base here and there. The infield is not totally foreign territory to him. And he had, several months there last year. I think he'll be even better than what we saw. And he'll be Bryce Harper. He'll hit a bunch of home runs, a bunch of doubles, and electrify the crowd. And his, when you combine talent and enthusiasm and electricity, the way he plays the game, it really can rub off on a lot of people and it can become special. So I expect another big year from him because he's going to be 100% healthy, and that's a good thing.
Last one for me, Mr. Salisbury. Thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate you. Obviously, Aaron Nola got paid. Zach Wheeler is looking to get paid. Kind of a two-part question, as a matter of fact. What do you anticipate happening in the long term between Zach Wheeler and the Phillies? And also speak on now that Nola has his money, now that that's behind him, what are we looking forward to with Aaron Nola going into the season?
Well, Nola didn't have his best regular season last year. He was very good in the postseason, but I mean, he's a guy who's going to give you 200 strikeouts. I mean, it's a 7-year deal. That's a long deal. You have to, he's turned 30 now. He's got a lot, he's pitched a lot of innings. He's actually in his career pitched more innings than Zach Wheeler. I think it's reasonable to wonder what the back end of that deal is going to look like. Knock on wood, he stays healthy and he delivers throughout it. But you just never know with pitching. It's always a risk. But I think they had to go there to lock him up, keep him in your rotation. Like I said, championship window, championship dreams. Okay, you need starting pitching. They have him. They need a good season from him. Need a big season from him and Wheeler if they're going to get where they want to go. And then they need a big October from both those guys. And I think they knew how important Aaron Nola was to this whole puzzle. And I'm certain they know how important Zach Wheeler is to this whole puzzle, how important he has been, how important Aaron Nola has been. And they want to keep that together because, starting pitching is such a commodity, especially a Zach Wheeler type who can, guys are bailing after 5 innings. He's still got a lot of old school in him. He wants to get into that 8th inning. What a great signing it was by Matt Klentak and his crew. Great signing. And I think about this all the time. The New York Mets went out and spent tons of money on Scherzer and Verlander, and they really, now it was their previous administration, but they made no effort to retain Zach Wheeler because they were worried about his health. They made no effort to keep him just as he was getting healthy and realizing his great potential. He's realized it here in Philadelphia for a lot of reasons. I mean, he's healthy. He's farther removed from his surgery. He's stronger. I think he's created an incredible bond with the pitching coach, Caleb Cotham. He's talked about it. I think Cotham has really helped him in a lot of ways. There's a real trust there. When you have trust between a manager and a team, a manager and a player, a coach and a player, good things can happen. And he really has that. I think he likes Philadelphia, likes being a Philly. I think he thinks this is the place he can get his ring. So all those signs point to me that, I think, and they want him badly. I just see them working something out and getting it done. Now, do I know it for a fact? No. Is there risk going into the final season for both sides? He might light it up and get a whole bunch more money out on the free agent market. But, there's risk about not having that security beyond this season. So I think there's an appetite on both sides to get something done. I don't think it'll be like 7 years like Nola got because he's about 4 years older than Nola. I mean, he'll pitch at 34 this year, I think. Yeah. And it'll be 35 with the new contract. So I could see like a shorter term deal with a larger AAV.
Yeah.
And maybe get something done there. But I just would be really surprised if they don't get an extension with Zach Wheeler. I can't bank on it. I just would be surprised because I don't think he's a guy that I don't think he has like wanderlust. I think this is where he wants to be. Mm-hmm. He's been really, some metrics will have him as the best starting pitcher in baseball since he arrived. Some WAR measurements, and I think they know his value. And I think they're going to have to pay and keep him here. But then it becomes, to make it all worthwhile, you got to win a World Series. You got to win a World Series with this crew to make the Harper deal worthwhile, to make the Turner investment worthwhile, to make the whatever they're going to pay Zach Wheeler worthwhile. They have a championship nucleus. They have a guy in the front office in Dombrowski and Full. They have people in the front office who know how to tweak. Payroll is so high. The championship desires are so high. The talent and its age. The talent is so good, but the odometer is ticking. If they have a need mid-season, if it's closer, they're going to go out and get something. They're going to make something work to try to fill a hole to get where they need and want to go. So I think Zach Wheeler is an important piece of this puzzle, a huge, important, maybe the most important piece. And I think they have something really going for them that he likes it here. He likes his team. He's had a great experience here. Make the money right, and he'll be here, and hopefully he'll help you win a World Series.
Jimmy, always fun talking ball with you, my man.
Definitely.
And I can't wait for the season to get started, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to chat during the season. We appreciate a couple minutes, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salisbury. Appreciate your time.
Hey, you're welcome, guys. Have a great one.
You too.
Yes,
Take
sir.
care. That's Jim Salisbury. Does an awesome job with his analysis of the Phillies and everything that's gone down with him. Very interesting words there. All right, let's get a timeout here, Tone, and let's come back and we will set our sights on the NFL. We have the Hall of Fame. We know exactly who's in. The awards were handed out last night. Another game being played outside of the U.S. border. We will talk about that as well. Where's Wink Martindale ending up? A lot to get to between now and the end of the program. Don't go anywhere. That's Tone DeShields. I'm Rob Ellis for Sports Take. All right, let's talk about Flynn Tree Services. Yes, they are an experienced, licensed, and insured Pennsylvania tree services company that will trim or remove any unwanted trees off of your property. They offer cost-effective solutions to any tree problem that you may face, and they're just a quick phone call away. And they serve southeastern Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and northern Delaware. Flynn Tree Services specializes in tree removal, stump grinding, as well as tree pruning. You can go to their Facebook or Instagram page for more information or a sampling of their work. Give Flynn Tree Services a call at 610-850-2848, 610-850-2848, or online at flynntreeservices.com. That's flynntreeservices.com.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
All right, welcome back, my friends. Tone Shield, Rob Ellis, hanging with you. Just wrap things up. Did a little hoops, did a little baseball. Back to the pigskin here, Tone. All right, so a couple things. One, the NFL will be playing a game in 2025 in Madrid, Spain. So the expansion continues. We know there's a game this year in Brazil that the Eagles are playing in, but there will be one in Spain as well, my friend. So
do you think there will ever be, I don't know, follow me here, and look, this is way far in the future. Do you think there will ever be, I don't know, NFL expansion leagues in these other countries?
Entire leagues? Well, they tried it. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, you were to say they tried it where?
They tried it with NFL Europe before, and it just didn't draw well enough. They had the Barcelona Dragons, and I forget where else. I don't know that there's quite the interest yet to be able to pull that off. What do you think?
No, I think I'm quite with you. I mean, they're clearly trying, right? I think this is their way of dipping their toe into the pool.
Yes.
Just to see where the interest is. But for it to be an entire league, I think the interest would have to be astronomical. And as of right now, the world still looks as football as their as their main priority, not American football.
That's correct. 100%. Yeah, I think eventually I think maybe they'd like to have a team in London, but I don't know that there'll be an entire league. But yeah, it's something to keep your eye on. That's for sure. All right. So here's what we do know. Here's what we know. Hall of Famers. We gave you a couple yesterday, were leaked out, but we have the full gamut here of guys who are going in. Julius Peppers, Dwight Freeney, Patrick Willis, Devin Hester, Andre Johnson, Steve McMichael, Randy Gradishaw. I mean, that's a good class right there.
See, those are some guys I actually had the opportunity to actually see play.
Yeah, you got some killers there.
Yep. Julius Peppers was a killer. Dwight Freeney, heavy hitter. Andre Johnson, man, it's a shame he didn't get the most out of his career in Houston.
Yeah.
But man, he was a freak of nature. A freak, man. Just a physical specimen, just dominant the catch point. The way Julius Peppers just to turn that corner. I was kind of shocked to not see Antonio Gates get in. But
he absolutely got stiffed, in my opinion. He got snubbed.
Yeah.
He should have been in.
Yeah. But look, I think he'll get in.
He will get in. He will. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they mentioned a couple names that are now eligible to be looked at as Hall of Famers. I think Eli Manning was one of them, and Marshawn Lynch is now eligible to be at least considered. I'm not sure. Eli is always going to be a fascinating debate because two-time Super Bowl champion, two-time Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
But, he has a career 500 record. It's tricky, right? It's tricky.
I hear. Yeah, it is very tricky. I think people who make Eli out to be cut and dry are wrong. When you play your best on the grandest of stages like he did, and really all throughout those playoff runs, it wasn't just the Super Bowl game. It was the playoff runs where he played great. That absolutely. And you win two. I would venture a guess there's not a lot of quarterbacks who won two who aren't in the Hall of Fame. The problem is, I'd have to look at it last 5-6 years, whatever it was, were really bad. They're bad for him, bad for the team. He almost said he would have been better off just sort of retiring after winning that second one. I think he gets in eventually. I think he gets in.
Yeah. Also, the last name helps.
It doesn't hurt. I'll tell you that it doesn't hurt. The one other thing that I would say in terms of snubs, let me just get this little rant out for a minute here. Eric Allen, I don't know what else has to be done here. My fear is we're getting so far away from when these guys played that there's less remembrance.
Yeah, less reverence for the impact. Yeah.
Yeah, for what they brought to the table. Because Eric Allen, no matter how you cut this thing, he should be in. And a little love for our guy Seth. I don't know what Seth Joyner has to do. Seth Joyner's numbers are better than Patrick Willis's numbers. I know Willis didn't play as long, but they're better. And he just seems like he's not even a thought anymore.
Right. He was a part of one of the greatest defenses in NFL history.
Yes.
The rise to where he came from, he was not a a first round or second round draft pick. He was a guy that had to earn it, from the muscle. So, yeah, man, it's unfortunate. But look, man, only time will tell. But yeah, the Eric Allen thing is just like, I don't know what else can be done at this point.
Yeah. All right. So that's that. Interesting line here from Nick Bosa, if you didn't hear, and we're going to get to the awards were handed out last night too. But did you see that somebody pulled the fire alarm in the 49ers hotel?
Somebody tried to pull the fire alarm in the Niners hotel?
A false alarm, just the thought is to mess with them, to keep them, mess up their sleep and all this stuff. It was done in the middle of the night. So Nick Bosa couldn't help himself. So he says, it came at 6 a.m. in Vegas. So he said, I'm sure somebody did it. It kind of reminded me of Philly when they had this construction going on outside. It was early in the morning and they were like demolishing a bridge right outside of our hotel.
All right, is you talking about the last NFC, like the NFC Championship game from last year?
Yeah, it's like, dude,
that's funny.
Do you really think that the Eagles set that up? I mean,
right? Yeah, let's set up a whole mock construction
site. Demolish a bridge just knowing you guys are in town. That
is hilarious. Now, obviously, it didn't hurt, but at the same time, it's one of those things like, come on, really? a lot of other things went wrong in that game.
Oh man! No, it was an elbow of your quarterback that was demolished, not the bridge.
Right. Real quick though, like I think it's so funny how some Niners fans and even the Niners themselves like to pretend that they didn't get their ass whooped last year.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, your quarterback got crushed, and then your backup got crushed, and we laid the wood on you. It's just that simple. You know what I mean? You say what you want. Okay, our offense didn't really have to do much. Our offense kind of struggled a little bit. The defense gave us short fields. Whatever. It's football. It's all in the same bowl. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Debo was like, it's not really a rivalry. The score has to be close. Well, you're right. You're right. The score does have to be close. We crushed our ass. What was it? 38-7, 35-7 last year?
Yeah, it was ugly.
It was pretty ugly. And this year, you crushed us. So hey, listen, you give and you take. It's the name of the game, baby.
Yeah.
So look, man, I don't think it's a rivalry either. But at the same time, let's not act like we ain't smacked that ass last year.
Yeah,
okay,
I agree.
Let's not pretend.
All right, let me give you. We talked about earlier what Britton Covey said, what Lane Johnson said. So let me tell you what Jordan Mailata said to Jeff McClain.
Oh man, here we go, another one.
Philadelphia Inquirer.
They're making me. All these guys sharing their deepest, darkest secrets.
Right.
It's I don't know, man. Like, are they? Maybe I'm overthinking it, but
no. This one, I wouldn't categorize this one as salacious.
Okay. All right.
Let me put it to that way. Okay.
All right. I'll let you cook. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. So what he said was, when the coordinators got fired, he said, and this is practical. He said there's going to be fingers pointed somewhere. When things go as ugly as that. And then when he was asked about Kellen Moore, he said, "quote." I know he's bringing in a new offense. Hopefully it's similar to what we've been running. I assume it is. If you watch the film, and from what I've seen from Dallas, it kind of looks the same. It might be different terminology wise, but I'm excited to be headed in a different direction. So this isn't one of those. I'm hopeful, blah, blah, blah. That's all that was.
Right.
Not a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But even outside of that, right? Lane, Britton Covey, all the guys, it just seems like, man, so much went wrong. So like they plummeted, and they plummeted fast. It was almost like they were on the Titanic. The ship was taking on water, and there was nothing they could do about it. That's how helpless they looked.
Yeah.
And you can kind of hear them when these guys talk about it after the fact. It just seemed like they were like shocked as well. They were shell shocked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And just not having an answer, right? More than anything else, just having no ability to respond.
And that's a scary place to be in life, right? Just to not to feel like you have no answers to your issue. That's a scary place to be.
When you don't have a vision or an out plan when you're in the midst of something that isn't a great situation, it's dire. It's scary. It is. It really is, in all seriousness. So, yeah, no question about it. All right, so a couple other things. Wink Martindale is going to be named the defensive coordinator at Michigan. They actually run a very similar scheme they did with Jesse Minter, who left as the defensive coordinator at Michigan to follow Jim Harbaugh to LA. But Wink Martindale runs a very similar system. It's an aggressive one. They're not afraid to blitz. They will send extra bodies. So it actually should be an interesting fit there with him.
Yeah, yeah. Wink. His exit from New York was pretty hilarious. Obviously, him and Dayball going back and forth, and obviously he just saying, "You know what, I'm out of here."
I love the shots too. He's in the airport now. We have no idea what's going on. Like, okay,
it was insane. But look, Wink is a good DC. Can be overly aggressive, sure, but sometimes that's what you got to do when you don't have the talent. You got to be over aggressive, and you got to try to overcompensate. So. I'm curious to see, where Michigan goes from here. That now Michigan's taking on an entirely new identity, new chapter with new head coach and new DC. Good thing they got their championship with Jim Harbaugh, because Lord knows where they're going to go from here.
That's true. That's true. Sharon Moore taking over there.
Yeah, hopefully things work out for him. Truly.
All right. Mike Zimmer. This will become official. He will be named the DC in Dallas. I hate to say it. I think that's a good move.
I think so. Yeah, he's solid. He's solid. You can have your own opinions about him as a head coach. It's a tough job, but overall, I feel like from a defensive mind perspective, he has to be one of the best, that we've seen in the league in the past 20 years.
Yeah, and he goes back there. He coached there for a long time too. He's an assistant a long time there. Woody Johnson. Woody Johnson's not parsing words here, Tone. So in regards to this upcoming season, he's the owner of the Jets, by the way. He says, this is it. It's time to go. We have to do better than 7 wins. And he also said that Robert Saleh needs to concentrate a little bit more on what's happening on the offensive side of the ball for his team. And then he said, what we really need is a backup quarterback, because we didn't have one last year.
Oh, shit.
Milf Hunter is gone, as if there was any questions there, Tone. Bye-bye.
If you're ever known more so for the kind of woman you like rather than your play, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, we knew he was gone anyway, but when we knew, but we didn't have a backup quarterback last year, you might want to sell the place or
look, and also Aaron Rodgers knows that his time is limited. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast recently, and he spoke about he understands that. From a health perspective and just recovery and all that kind of stuff, he can't afford to incur any kind of injuries like that anymore. So he knows that he's on the back few holes of the career. He's 40 years old. Is he 40, 41? He's something like that, right?
Yeah, 40, I think. He's
yeah. He's around there. So he knows that it's now or never. Hopefully, he can bounce back. Get that momentum back, and maybe the Jets can be competitive and compete for at least their division. Let's just aim there first. Compete for your division, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense for sure. All right. Elsewhere, let's run through some of the awards that came down last night, Tone. For starters, MVP goes to Lamar Jackson. He wins the MVP pretty handily. He got 49 out of the 50 first place votes. The order went Lamar, Dak Prescott, McCaffrey, Purdy, Josh Allen, Tyreek Hill. Can't say I'm surprised. I thought either McCaffrey or Josh Allen would be 2 and 3 instead of Dak, but whatever. Lamar Jackson. This goes off the regular season before everybody starts saying, but Lamar sucked in the AFC Championship game. He did. But it's about the regular season, and I think he deserved it. Yeah.
It's funny. I don't have any complaints about how the awards were distributed last night. I feel like everybody rightfully deserved it. When it comes to defensive rookie of the year, look, Jalen Carter fell off on the back end, and Will Anderson picked it up. Because Will Anderson started off a little slow.
Yes,
and Jalen Carter started off fast. And here we are. It's all this. This just goes to show you this is a what have you done for me lately league. And, when you think about lately when in the Eagles, things kind of fell off a cliff. And the Houston Texans, they caught fire on the back end. And rightfully deserved. I have no debates or qualms with the way the awards were distributed. But I think TJ Watt had a little bit of an issue with that Defensive Player of the Year thing. You know what I mean? He had a little tweet saying, it's nothing I'm not used to. But didn't he win the Defensive Player of the Year before? Or he's won it before, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. So relax.
You'll get over it. Yeah, I mean, you bring up the defensive rookie of the year. Will Anderson deserved it, and here's my thing.
It was close. It was a close vote.
It was. And look, man, he played the whole season. So show up the last 6 games, Jalen, and you would have had this thing. It was
Easily.
yours.
It was his.
So lesson learned. I hope. I hope.
What I do appreciate, I thought Devin Witherspoon would get more consideration.
Yeah.
But one thing I do like, though, I like that the trench guys was dominated. Kobe. It was a Kobe Turner or Kobe Smith was his name.
Yeah.
With the Rams, he was like a 3rd or 4th round pick.
Well, he's gonna be a stud. I mean,
Yeah.
he's already close.
For sure.
They had a good draft.
Exactly. So the Rams are coming quick. So
they turned it around fast.
Absolutely.
All right, stay with that. So this is, again, credit to the Houston organization. They had the offensive and the defensive rookie of the year because CJ Stroud that was a no-brainer, the ultimate no-brainer, but he won it as well. So you get Will Anderson and CJ Stroud. Their GM's sitting pretty right now.
Absolutely. And D'Amico Ryans, he came so close to winning Coach of the Year. I think it was like a vote or 2 off. Like it was close. It was close. Has there ever been a time where 2 teams' rookies won offensive and defensive rookie of the year back-to-back seasons? Has that ever been done?
Back-to-back seasons.
Because the Jets, Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner won it last year.
Right.
And this year, obviously, Stroud and Anderson.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. It's a good question. I don't know.
It's stellar.
It is. It's amazing. It is. And props to them. So, all right. Offensive player of the year, Christian McCaffrey.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah. More than 2,000 yards from the line of scrimmage, 21 touchdowns. Not a shocker. And this one also, Myles Garrett gets defensive player of the year, 14 sacks, 17 tackles for losses, 4 forced fumbles as well. So I can't argue either one of those choices right there. Kevin Stefanski, I think he deserves it, man.
I think so. Yeah, for sure.
5 different quarterbacks this year and got them to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. I can't argue with it.
Pretty awesome. D'Amico Ryans came in 2nd place. Great rookie year with the Texans. This one, I was surprised, Tone. Flacco gets the comeback player of the year, and Damar Hamlin came in 2nd. I thought, and this is no disrespect to Damar, but I just thought because of his story, even though he didn't play a ton this year, I thought he was going to get it over anybody. But they went with Flacco.
If they would have, now again, let me offer this. And again, this is no disrespect, but do you think giving him that award would have taken away from the credibility of the award? Because again, he didn't play much. It wasn't like he was a starter or a high impact guy. He was a special teamer. He got on the field here and there. But
right.
Flacco, damn near saved the Brown season.
I think Flacco was more deserving.
I think so too. I think so too.
Yep. So I think
I even go as far to say Baker Mayfield was more deserving than Hamlin as well. And again, this is no disrespect. He came back from death. Let's not minimize that. He came back from death. But we're talking about production on the football field here.
Yep.
And it just doesn't correlate.
Mm-hmm. Our old buddy Jim Schwartz, defensive coach of the year.
That's dope. That's awesome. He did an amazing job.
He did.
So, listen. The Browns cleaned up, man. Coach of the year, defensive coach of the year, defensive player of the year, comeback player of the year. They cleaned up.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, they did. They did extremely well. Man of the year, Cameron Hayward from the Steelers. No surprise there. I mean, this guy does so much for charity. I don't know if people even know what's going on with this guy, but he does so many things for charity. He's in contention for that every single year. The only question is he may retire. I think he's going to play another year, but he might retire. So you hope that's not the case.
Yeah, congratulations to him, man. I know our guy Lane Johnson was in the running for it. But look, man, the fact that you're nominated for an award like that, that's recognition, even in and of itself, right? Shout out to Cam, for taking home the award.
Yeah, no, well deserved. All right, so it's pretty cool, man. There are 3 buddies who have gotten together every single year for every Super Bowl. This is pretty cool. Got one guy, Don Chrisman, Gregory Eaton, and Tom Henschel have been together for all 57, and they will be going on Sunday as well. They're all in their 80s, and they've been going, to these games for the better part of whatever it is, 60
Wait, they've gone to the Super Bowl?
They've gone to every Super Bowl. They get together every year and go to and they've gone to every Super Bowl since Super Bowl I.
They must have like a pot that they put into, and it just goes into their Super Bowl fund. They have to, because those tickets get expensive every year.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think was the ticket price for the very first Super Bowl?
I'm gonna say $5. I'm gonna say $5.
It says here, it says Super Bowl. It says ticket prices for the first Super Bowl were a mere $12. And the
12,
event
okay.
And the event didn't even sell out. It was the only non-sellout Super Bowl to ever occur.
Yeah, they still didn't know. Nobody really got the concept. They didn't know what it was at that point.
Right.
Actually, I have a number for you. The 1960 Eagles championship game. I think the first Super Bowl was 67. So this was about 7 years before that. Eagles played the Packers. It's the only playoff loss that Vince Lombardi had. The Eagles beat him to win the championship in 60. The ticket price was $4.59.
What?
$4.59 for the NFL championship game in 1960.
Well, it's funny, right? Inflation. Like when you think about that era, like if you had $100 in your pocket, you were looked at as like, whoa,
dude,
you're the Bill of the ball tonight. Hey, where we going? We riding with him.
Mm-hmm. No question, man.
$100 now. I could spend that by accident without paying attention.
What's parking now? I think at the link and the surrounding parking.
The link it's like 25, 30 bucks.
No, it's more. I think it's at least
went up?
40. I think it's at least 40.
Wow.
You mean 100 might not get you parking in a ticket. Actually, it won't. It wouldn't.
No.
I don't think 100 gets you parking in one ticket to get into the game now.
Listen, one hot dog, or listen, I'll put it this way. One bucket of chickens and Pete's French fries can probably get you 5 tickets at the NFL championship. You know what I'm saying? Like, those fries, man, they're good, but geez, they can get expensive.
I know, man. And that's the thing. When we go, that's all my kids want. They're like, I just want to get chickies. I'm like, okay. And then the line is
the fries are delicious.
Oh, they're
fries
great
with that cheese and
the seasoning. Oh my god,
I'll be honest. I used to like going to Phillies games just for like dinner.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I love Citizens Bank Park. I love the setup. I love how they have like the tables that you can stand. I just love Citizens Bank Park. Everything about it. You can go there and just relax. Oh, by the way, there's a baseball game going on over here, but we're just hanging out.
Yeah,
I love Citizens Bank Park, man. I miss my city so much, man. I miss chickens and pizza fries. I miss cheesesteaks. I miss water ice. I miss soft pretzels. I miss hoagies.
That's the tough thing. It is.
I'm hurting right now. I'm hurting. My wife is laughing in my face.
You need somebody to send you a care package in dry ice with water ice, with some I don't know how soft pretzels would hold up, but cheesesteak hoagie, even if it's not like stellar, it's still better than nothing, man.
You know who has good soft pretzels? Wawa.
Yeah,
their soft pretzels are legit.
Yeah.
Obviously the Philly Pretzel Factory is great.
Yeah.
But Wawa, if you're trying to like send me some, yeah, you can send me. You can send me the Wawa ones. They're pretty
Wawas
good.
are expanding. They're not quite as far as Texas, but they're in Florida now. They're in South Carolina.
Seriously?
Now. Oh yeah, North Carolina. Yeah.
I had no idea. Wow, that's pretty dope. But I miss you guys, man. I miss the Philly cuisine.
I know. All right, Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien was set to be the offensive coordinator and play caller at Ohio State this year. You remember Bill O'Brien was the offensive coordinator last year with the Patriots, Penn State, Houston Texans, longtime Patriots coach before that. He's actually not going to Ohio State. He is going to Boston College to be their head coach. You remember Boston College's head coach left to be the defensive coordinator in Green Bay. So now O'Brien, who's a native of Massachusetts, his wife is a graduate of Boston College. He went to Brown University. Anyway, he's got all kinds of Boston ties.
Okay.
He's going there.
That's pretty cool. Homecoming
head coach.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. Look, he's had a long run in the NFL and in college. He's always had a job. like I'm pretty sure Boston College is paying him very well, obviously. So that's pretty cool, man. That's dope.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's going there to run that show. Kyle Shanahan says that he's not worried about, all the, there's a lot of talk about, some of his shortcomings in some big games. He said he's not worried about any of those narratives, man. He's just completely focused at the task at hand.
I mean, look, so far he's been defying those narratives. Their playoff run has been, built with comebacks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is going to be a hell of a Super Bowl. I'm excited for it, but I still think the Chiefs' edge just went out.
Yeah, I do too. All right, well, let's as a matter of fact, let's get a timeout and let's come back and we're going to dive into this game, Tone. I'll give you some other prop bets that I have as well that I'll throw your way that we didn't get to yesterday. But let's really look at this matchup, man. And there's some heavy hitters. Mahomes and Reed and Shanahan and Purdy and Debo. We know the combatants. So let's talk about it when we come back. Don't go anywhere. That's Tone to Shields. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take. We'll be right back.
I remember getting my heart broken when they lost the Super Bowl in 2004. We're big Eagles fans. We moved to South Philly because of the Eagles. When they won, we went straight to Broad Street, and everybody was going nuts over there, and it was just a memory that you'll never forget.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday. Watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the sports betting show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
We're back. Final segment of the show on this Friday. All right, Niners Chiefs, Tone. Let's look at it here. The line is 1.5. San Francisco's still favored. Does that make you wonder a little? I think we're both in the camp of this is. We both like the Chiefs, but I thought that line would move more. It's moved to 0.5 point, and San Fran's still favored. Usually, they're pretty on with this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the biggest, disparity. I mean, look, a lot of people think this thing. I look at it as people think this thing can go either way. And look, we talked about this before. The Niners just had an overall more dominant season, so I understand it. Their offense is loaded. Their defense is very good. The Chiefs, they do have Patrick Mahomes. They do have Andy Reid. Their defense is great, but their offense, it's the Mahomes, Travis Kelce show, and everybody else just try your best to fill in. So, I mean, I understand the spread. That doesn't mean anything once that coin is flipped, once that game starts. That don't mean nothing. So you better make sure you got your money on the right horse.
All right. So let's look at a couple things. How much does the Mahomes Reid mystique come into play in your estimation where you're already intimidated? I'm not going to say the game's over, but you're already like, man, these guys have been to 3. They've won 2. It's kind of like the Brady Belichick thing. Like, is there an inherent advantage, or because they faced them 4 years ago in the Super Bowl, and some of those guys are still with the Niners, not everybody, obviously. Is there less of a intimidation factor in your estimation?
I think when you're going up against Mahomes and Andy Reid, there's always going to be some mystique or intimidation factor that you have to overcome.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes has shown you in more than one Super Bowl that it don't matter what the point differential is, he's going to come back. In his 2 Super Bowl victories, he's had to come back from double-digit deficits.
Right.
So if there's anything that's going to intimidate you, it's going to be that. So you better make sure when you got him, when you got your foot on his neck, make sure you also drive a stake through his heart as well. Make sure you got the garlic. Make sure the sun is shining bright, because that man is the undead. That man is a vampire. He will not be denied.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is that's a real thing, man. That's a real thing. I actually think that same mystique took a major hit in the Philadelphia Eagles in that Super Bowl last year, especially on defense. Because I think the offense came to play, all things considered. Defense, they're the ones that were kind of caught with their pants down. So although the Niners, they're a well-prepared team, they're a great team. Do not get it twisted. But if you think Patrick Mahomes is going to lay down and die, you got another thing coming.
Well, I think 2 things off of that, right? You just look at last year; they were down 10, and you look at the way they stormed back against the Eagles in the Super Bowl. But the other part of it is the Niners have gotten off to these slow starts, Tom. I mean, they trailed 24-7 to the Lions. So, and you know what kickstarted? A miracle play where it bounces off the defender's face mask, and credit to Ayuk, he stays with it, and he makes a great catch. But that's what kickstarted it. You play around with the Chiefs like that, it's over.
Talk about the ball bouncing your way, right?
Yeah.
It happens, though. In order to win big in this league, especially in a league where there's so many moving parts, you gotta work hard. You gotta be talented. Gotta make sure you got the right people in the building. You gotta be prepared. Gotta cross your T's and dot your I's. All those things have to happen. But also, to get to a Super Bowl and win it, you're gonna need a few footballs to bounce your way. That's just how that's the nature of the game.
Think about last year, and no excuses, but the ball, Jalen fumbles it and kicks it to Bolton.
Kicked it right to him.
Who goes to the house. Like that. That's just unlucky. It's an unlucky bad play, and it happens all the time.
Because typically, if that falls, he just picks it up real quick and gets back and throws it away. Probably he kicked it right to him.
Yep.
So those are the kind of, and that's the play that kickstarted their comeback.
Yeah, and there's some things it stinks, and the guy Jalen was great. Other than that, he made one mistake, and it was a killer.
Just think about how differently the world would have looked at Jalen Hurts if he won that game.
Very differently. Everything. Like, we would have been as painful as this year was. It would have been like, all right, this sucked, but just won a Super Bowl, man. the second one in 5 years. We'll be all right. Meanwhile, it doesn't, like, this year doesn't even penetrate you. You know what I mean? You're hurting, but it's like,
well, it's like a stub toe. But the pain goes away after a while.
yeah. Yep. All right. So that, I think that's one thing. Here's the other question. If they do fall behind, can Purdy bring them back?
That's a good question. I mean, look, here's the difference. When the Niners have had to storm back, they haven't, they didn't face a defense like the Chiefs. You get down double digits against that Chiefs defense, I don't know. I have a hard time thinking you're going to come back because I don't think Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are going to come off the gas. This is a game where they don't want to get down by double digits.
No.
You do not want to do that. But also, here's the thing about the Niners. They have this uncanny ability to string together scoring drives like it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
They're very capable. And when they start, they're like a snowball. Once they get rolling down the hill, it's very hard to stop them. So this is going to be one of those games where I think whoever has the ball last wins the game.
I feel like that too. And there's a bet that you can make. There's an over-under bet that you can make that someone will score in the last 2 minutes of the game. I think somebody absolutely scores in the last 2 minutes. Like, I think it may come down to you either have to get a touchdown or a field goal on either side. Like, I think it's going to be that kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be a very good game. Like, I get it from Eagles fans' perspective. It's like, I got to root for either, the Chiefs again, who just ripped my heart out last year, or the 49ers, who are the most annoying fan base, maybe is second only to the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a no-win, but if you're just able to sit there and enjoy football, I think it will be a good game.
Yeah, if you step outside of yourself, look, there are literally, I want to say, 29 other teams who are sitting home with you. So just enjoy the game. That 31st and 32nd team being the Chiefs and the Niners, they earned their keep. They deserve to be there.
Agreed.
The Eagles, as much as we love them, and if we're being realistic and honest with ourselves, they do not deserve to be in that game.
Listen, no question. They don't deserve to even be sniffing the Super Bowl. The Eagles, not at all. The two best teams are there. Think about the road that the Chiefs went on. They beat Miami, they beat the Buffalo at Buffalo, and they beat Baltimore at Baltimore. Look at what San Francisco did. They had to come back big time 2 weeks ago against the Lions. They played a very tight game against the Packers as well. And they had a great regular season where they had the best record in the NFC and they earned the bye. I don't begrudge either team anything
at all.
Yeah, they deserve exactly what they have. All right, so a couple other things to look at. Chiefs defense, 13 points per game in the postseason. We rightfully so look at Mahomes and we look at Reed and Kelce and all that. Man, this defense is playing at an extremely high level, Tone. And the thing that Purdy does struggle with is when you send extra bodies at him. And we know Steve Spagnuolo, I think they're the third highest blitz rate, something like that. Mm-hmm. Steve Spagnuolo was not afraid in the biggest of moments to pull the trigger. That's going to be something else to keep your eye on here.
Yeah, another thing about that Chiefs defense, they're not afraid to send their corners in the blitz package either. They're very creative, especially with Trent McDuffie. He comes off the line quick, and sometimes you don't know where he's coming from. They do a hell of a job at mixing and matching with the safeties and the corners and sending different variations of the blitz and zone blitz schemes or whatever. Both teams have legitimate defenses. I think it's going to be really important for that Niners defensive line to finally step up. They've been inconsistent all year, and they put a lot of money into it. Now obviously Nick Bosa, he had 2 sacks in that Detroit game. He showed up in that game, but just overall, the D line has been underwhelming. For the 49ers, they got to step up big time because if they don't, and they allow the Chiefs to get a running game going, you're basically handing the Lombardi to Patrick Mahomes.
Let me ask you about Steve Spagnuolo. I know he's not a young man. I get that. So that might answer this, but is he just in the friend zone now? In other words, is he not even going to be thought of as a head coaching candidate?
I don't think he wants it.
Yeah,
that's what I think. I don't think he wants it. If anything, he could have the way he probably could have got a job last year if he. I look at it like this because he's been a head coach before, right?
He has, yes.
I think he's past that. I think he enjoys his situation.
In Jim Johnson mode where he just doesn't want the aggravation.
Exactly. Kind of like Vic Fangio. They're kind of in that mode where they just want to focus on defense.
Yeah.
They don't want the headache of a full team. They love, they love defense. They love being creative in that way. They love developing the young guys on defense. I think, that's where he is right now.
Okay. Now I think another factor in this thing is the rushing attack of the Niners. McCaffrey, this is an area where the Chiefs aren't necessarily great. They're much better with their pass rush, their coverage. Run is a weakness, a bit of an Achilles heel. And the other thing is you don't have to worry about preserving McCaffrey. I think part of it sometimes with Shanahan is he's tempted to use him a ton, but he wants to keep him for the long haul. This could be a game where he gets a ton of carries.
I'm pounding him.
I am too.
I'm Christian McCaffrey. Listen, man, you gonna earn that paycheck. I don't care what happens to you after the day. Do what you want. Ice it up. On Sunday, be prepared to touch that ball 25 times.
I think so too, man. I think whether it's swing passes out of that, but you don't just have to swing. He can run routes too, but whatever passes or runs, I think you're going to get a ton of him. You're going to get a ton of him in this game.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. All right, let me hit you with a couple. Speaking of that, throw a prop your way with McCaffrey. 4.5 catches.
Taking the over.
Like the over.
Taking the over.
All right.
I think they're going, like you and I just said, I think he's going to have his hands on that ball at minimum 20 times a game. Minimum 20 times. I wouldn't be surprised if he had 25 touches.
And
especially if he gets hot. Especially if he gets on.
That's the other part. Yeah, if he's on a heater early, they're going to keep feeding him. And I think Shanahan does a good job of getting him involved in, little dig routes or slants over the middle, those kind of things where there's always a mismatch with whether you throw a safety or a linebacker on him that can't cover him. So yeah, I like the over also. All right.
I even think Spags is looking at it like, I shut down McCaffrey. I could work my way around everything else.
Yeah.
And I think so. I think McCaffrey is their number one priority.
Yeah. I would agree with that. All right. Let me ask you, Debo. 59.5 receiving yards for Debo.
I'll take the over. He's a yak monster. I'll take the over.
He is a yak monster. You're right about that. Anybody we're not looking at necessarily? Anybody we're focusing on the prime suspects, right? As usual. But is there anybody you think could make a difference in this thing? Could step up?
Okay, so if it's one guy that I think, oh no, he's out. He's out for the year. No, that can't work. I think Nick Bolton is somebody that the Chiefs need to keep their eye on. I'm sorry, not Chiefs. The Niners need to keep their eye on.
Right.
Nick Bolton, he moves around so much. He's so fast. He can cover. I got this weird feeling. The Chiefs are going to shut down Kittle.
Yeah, I don't anticipate him being a huge.
I just got this weird feeling that Kittle's not. He's going to have maybe 3 catches but they're not going to be high impact. I don't know.
All right,
I think they're going to force. I think the Chiefs are really going to try to force Brock Purdy to really throw that ball downfield and really try to throw it outside the numbers. And I think they're going to lock down the middle of that field.
Good choice with Kyle.
Good choice, Kyle Jennings. Good choice.
Yeah, I like that. I like Juwan Jennings for the 49ers. I'm going to say, I don't. I'm not saying this like he's an unknown, okay, by any stretch. In fact, I think he's a stud. But we don't. When we start talking about the Niners, we go McCaffrey, Kittle, Debo, and who's fourth? Ayuk, right? Ayuk is a really good player, man.
Very good player. I think he's a better. I know Debo was the big.
He's a better pure receiver than Debo.
Yeah, I think he's a better pure receiver than Debo. I think he runs better routes. I think he has better hands too.
Yeah, Debo is a hybrid. He's a guy who can kind of do a lot of different. Believe me, I'd love to have him. It's not a knock. Yeah. He's just a little bit different than Ayuk's more of a pure receiver.
But one thing I will tell you this though, that boy L'Jarius Sneed, he's a confident corner. He's going to play up tight. He's not afraid to put his hands on you. So I'm curious to see if Debo, whoever he guards, L'Jarius is more so they're more burly corner. He's bigger than Trent McDuffie, so they may put him on Debo. And put Trent on Brandon because he has that foot speed. I'm curious, man. If L'Jarius Sneed shuts down Debo, if he finds a way to keep him, from making a big impact, man. Listen, Brock Purdy's going to have to win this game. This isn't going to be one of those games where he can just rely on. That's why that's why it's so important for Christian McCaffrey to go off, because he's going to make Brock Purdy's life so much easier. If Christian McCaffrey struggles a little bit early, or he just can't get off the way he wants, and Brock Purdy's going to have to win this game and will it down the road.
And that is not the scenario you want.
And that's not the scenario they want. I think the Niners want to run their way to the Super Bowl. I think they want to run their way to the win. And if they can't get that run game going, they're going to struggle.
Well, I would be surprised. Let me put it to this way: if they're unable to run, I think they're in big trouble. Like if you and I are sitting here Monday and we say, "Man, do you believe the Niners won and they only rushed for 58 yards?" I would be really surprised.
I'd be shocked.
Yeah, that doesn't compute to me. I just don't think there's enough there.
Yep. I'll put you this way: if Brock Purdy has more than 35 attempts, they lose this game.
Yes. Fair. All right. Let me sprinkle a couple more in here. First touchdown scored McCaffrey plus 360. That's not a bad bet.
That's not a bad bet at all.
You put 100 up to win 360 on that guy scoring first.
That's not a bad bet. I'll take that. I would take, if I was a bet man, I would take that.
Yeah. I like that. All right. Travis Kelce, 20 plus first quarter receiving yards, minus 110. I kind of like that.
I'm taking that. It's easy.
Because Mahomes always gets him going early. Andy, high percentage throws, that's a good one, actually. I like that one a lot.
And don't let Travis Kelce get an open space.
Yeah. All right. Let me hit you with a couple other ones here. I'm going under on this one. Nick Bosa, 2+ sacks.
Yeah, I'm taking an under on that.
Going under on that.
Definitely taking an under. Listen, I'll be shocked if they, as a team, they sack him 2 times. I'll be shocked.
Same. And because while he's not what you would call a runner, we know how elusive he can be. And he's healthy.
Yeah.
And
the Niners D line has been struggling as a whole. And then that Chiefs offensive line is legit, with guys like Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, obviously Joe Thuney may not play.
That's a big one. Yeah.
So that's a big loss that may have an impact on what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But Mahomes is such a hard guy to sack. He's just so elusive. He's so slippery. He just knows.
He's so smart.
He gets the ball out of his hand. He finds guys. He finds it.
Unbelievable. All right, I'll give you this is an interesting one to me, and I'll give you 2 on this one individual. Over under receptions for Rashee Rice, 6.5. Let's start with that one, and then I'll hit you with one more on him. He's really blossomed into the go-to receiver.
You said 6.5 receptions?
6.5 receptions, yeah. That's right on the border for me.
Yeah, you see, I think both teams want to get their running game going.
So you go under because there's not going to be as many passing attempts.
Yeah. I think both teams don't really want to throw the ball 40 times.
Yeah.
I don't think they want that.
So you go under?
I think I'll take that because I think he has 6 catches. I think he's going to end the game with 6 catches.
Okay.
I think he's right on the nose, so I'm taking it under.
All right. Let's go receiving yards for him. Then you might have just answered it, but 66.5. Over under. Yeah.
I take the under.
Okay. I would too.
I take the under. Right. I think he's going to be a chain mover here and there, but he's not going to be a big play guy.
I don't.
It's a little tricky, right? I'm taking under.
Valdez-Scantling is actually feeling good about himself.
Yeah, he's their guy that takes it over the top. He's that guy for them.
Right. And I think Mahomes has a little bit more confidence throwing to him now, whereas for a while, he was like, yeah, what are you doing? Like, what are we doing here with Valdez-Scantling and who's the other knucklehead? Tony. Like, he didn't want to throw to either one of those 2 guys.
Do you even think he plays?
No, I think he's inactive.
I don't think
I think he's 100% inactive.
Yeah, I think they don't want the headache.
You'd have to have somebody get hurt. That's the only way he dresses.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they say, "Look, just stay at the hotel."
Yeah, I mean that you did your damage, dude. Like all the stuff he said previously. Andy Reid does not forget that kind of stuff. Trust me. All right, Pat Mahomes. I like the under in this one. 260.5 passing yards.
I like the under too.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And also, if he goes any higher than that, that tells me they're behind.
Yeah, right. That's a comeback attempt.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think he's going to allow himself to be put in that situation. I don't think.
Purdy 247.5.
Under. Taking under.
I just don't see him being capable of that against that Chiefs defense.
Yeah, and again, I don't think that's even what they want from him.
No,
I don't think they want
that. That's not the game plan. That's for sure.
Hell no. The game plan is Christian McCaffrey.
Right, as it should be. All right. Will there be a 2-point conversion? Plus 128, 100 to throw 128 up there. I like that. I'm going to say yes.
I'm taking that. Yeah, I'm taking that.
Team to score last will also win the game. Minus 245.
I'm taking that.
This is a weird one. Jersey number of first touchdown scorer. This includes McCaffrey, Kelsey, and Kittle. I don't know.
That's a weird one.
McCaffrey's 23, Kelsey's 87, Kittle's 85.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
I wouldn't touch that. All right. Shortest touchdown. Under 1.5 yards. Yes, I'm on that one. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That means somebody's at the goal line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And think about it. You got McCaffrey, who has a nose for the end zone, and Pacheco, who runs super hard.
Yeah, I like that.
That one will work. All right. Let me throw. Where are we at here? Okay. All right. We get a couple more in.
Yeah, we got a couple more.
All right. Let's see. All right. Travis Kelce. I gave you that one. Actually, let me change that up. Let's go Mahomes passing touchdowns. 1.5 touchdowns. You go over under minus 160.
I'm taking the over.
I think he gets at least 2.
Yeah, definitely.
Pacheco 65.5 rushing yards.
Over. Definitely taking the over.
Interesting.
Taking the over.
I think I hit you with this yesterday, but I'll throw it one more time at you. 3.5 receptions for Kittle.
I'm taking the over, but I think they're going to be like non-impactful. Listen, I'll put it this way. He may have a touchdown catch, but it's going to be for like short yardage.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I don't think he's going to go crazy with yards. I don't see that.
All right. Who I'm not even going to give you odds. Let's just talk about it. Who wins the MVP of the game?
Patrick Mahomes.
Hard to go against him.
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Hard to go against him. All right. If you had to go with the second, let's exclude Mahomes.
Okay. Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce.
Yeah,
I mean, there's going to be a lot of tension on him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if I'm going really outside the box here, the Super Bowl MVP is going to be Trent McDuffie. He catches a pick six.
Like that.
A pick six. And
I like that. Yes.
He catches a pick six.
And
he gets a sack. But the pick six is going to be a game sealing pick six.
Ooh.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So
they're already up a little, and maybe he gets one to make it 2 possessions.
Yeah, kind of similar to the remember when was that Michael Jenkins that returned that touchdown with the Saints in the Colts Super Bowl? Who returned that
No.
That pick? Who was that?
Porter? Who it wasn't Malcolm. Was it Harper?
I can't remember, but you know what play I'm talking about.
I know the one. Yeah, the Colts and the Saints. It wasn't Malcolm, but I know what you're talking.
It's going to be something like that.
Okay.
It's going to be game sealing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Trent's going to be active in this game.
Yeah, he could. Look, they have some really good defensive backs. They did an excellent job drafting and developing these guys, and that's where you give them a lot of credit, man. That's for sure. With the way that they have turned that defense into a real defense, because last year the offense carried them. That's the hope if you're the Eagles, that you can get it turned around quick through the draft and through a couple of moves. Kyle says Tracy Porter. Thank you, Kyle. Yeah.
Tracy
But
Porter.
that is the way you do it. All right. That's going to do it for us. Coming up, we have the National Football Show with Tone and Dan Cilio. We have, I want to thank everybody streaming, everybody listening, everybody chat. Appreciate you guys. And yeah, we'll run through the Super Bowl like we run through an Eagles game on Monday. We'll go through it. We'll go through the commercials.
We're here, Rob.
We will go through all of it like we normally do, and we'll kind of dig into all those kind of things for sure. Sixers, any Eagles news, any coaching updates that we get, Phillies as they begin spring training this upcoming week, which is crazy in and of itself. All right, real quick, weekend plans for you. Anything?
Oh man, this is funny. Real quick, me and the wife are going to go out and go buy some cowboy boots and cowboy hats.
All right, so I need to see them. I need to see them.
Yeah,
so
we're gonna buy some cowboy boots. We're going to head into Austin.
Cool.
You know, do a little shopping for the house.
Like it.
And you know, kind of take it easy, man. And
Nice.
Sunday we have a birthday party / Super Bowl party to attend. So it should be interesting.
All right, brother. Well, everybody enjoy. Have a great weekend, and we will see you guys on Monday. Everybody have a great weekend. Thanks.
Take care, you guys.